Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, John McMullen, back with you live for another 2-hour show. It's Dallas Cowboy week coming up here, and week number 12. Eagles coming off a big win Sunday night versus the Detroit Lions. That's two straight versus two big opponents in the NFC. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Wednesday morning, my friend?
Doing well. Had a bit of a rough day yesterday, but bouncing back. You know, never like to wake up to a flat tire, but that's
how'd that go? How did the flat tire excursion go?
It's fixed.
All right. Well,
I took the opportunity to get because I'm late in getting tires, so I got all four, but took freaking half the day.
Yeah,
I bet.
I bet.
Yeah. I did not see. I was not there for the first time, by the way, this year for the coordinator press conferences. So.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah, because Vic did speak. Did you have a chance to hear them though? I know you didn't get a chance to get a question.
Yeah, I get the transcripts and I, read through them and all that.
Anything stick out, John? Vic spoke. Patullo spoke. It's funny how he's become such a hotbed. I don't know, John. Maybe it's you broke me, but I see these social media posts and I'm just like, I don't know what people are talking about.
He's the scapegoat. Like I always criticize people for scapegoating people, including Jeffrey Lurie, up to Jeffrey Lurie, because he will scapegoat people if they don't reach expectations. And, at the same time, they'll talk about it's the ultimate team game and it's not one person, which is the correct response. But, people want. It's human nature to want to point to one thing. Oh, if you fix this, everything's fine. There's no empirical evidence for that, but people believe it. Even though you went through the Sean Desai experiment on the other side of the football, and that was a disaster when they moved on from him, and it got even worse. So I get it every day. Oh, Scott Lepler should take over because of his Bowling Green experience. You don't even go to Jason Michaels, been a coordinator in this league. Like, what are you going to do? What do you think you're going to do? There's so many people. Well, go get Brian Daboll. Go get Mike McDaniel. If he gets fired, he's not going to get fired now. But you get the point. They want the big name who it coming in mid-season.
Yeah, right.
It's not absurd.
Not the right move. Yeah. Brian Daboll was the coordinator at Alabama the season that Jalen was benched in the Super Bowl.
Well, he's very close to Nick Sirianni. And guess what? If they lose in the first round of the playoffs, that might be a conversation to have if you're going to.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that's his history with Jalen. So I don't know if they're the best fit, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah. I mean, you'd have to vet that out down the road. But my point bringing it up, I don't want to vet it because it's silly. It's silly. Right. To think you're going to shift an NFL offense in week 12. And by the way, similar to 2023 when they moved on from Sean Desai, they're the number one seed in the NFC. It's like nobody wants to blame the players. And here's how I'm gonna reverse it and start from scratch. Saquon Barkley's not the same player he was last year. A.J. Brown's not the same player he was last year. Every single piece on that offensive line is worse than it was last year. Every single one of them. Now, there's different levels. Jordan's still playing at a high level. Last year, they PFF graded him as the best player in all the football. He's not playing at that level. Lane Johnson, slam dunk, first ballot Hall of Famer, not playing at the level he played at last year. Landon Dickerson, not even close because of the injuries. Cam Jurgens, not even close. Tyler Steen's actually been a nice surprise, but he's not Mekhi Becton. The tight ends are brutal in the run game specifically. When it comes, and so much of the running game is them getting blown up, by the way. That's part of it. Like, at some point, you got to look at the players. I love Amik Robertson. And here's, I think he's a way better player. I've noticed him last year when I had all the injuries, and I said, boy, that's one of those things where they found a guy who can play because they we're forced to play him. And sometimes that happens in the
Yeah,
NFL.
right. Exactly.
But Rock is saying, with all due respect to the Temple people, I mean, AJ's not getting away from these guys. He's not getting away from them. And man coverage, and all they do is play press coverage. I'm watching this game again. I'm like, he's blanketed. And then, of course, the quarterback. With the back-to-back weather games, they're now 28th in the NFL in passing, which is pretty awful. Last year, they were 29th.
Do you think it's become as simple as the offense has been so, below average in passing for the better part of 2 years now that 5 guys on the offensive line are never going to block 8 guys in the box, John? I mean, just too many guys in the box. And they don't trust the threat of the passing game, and it's become a lot harder to run. And now that problem has compounded all offensive problems. And now you have this even more clunky, even more ugly 2025 offense as compared to 24, where they were able to run the ball.
The only difference is the running game, and the running game last year was historic. So that's definitely a part of it. But it's interesting because in pass protection, and Fred had some problems in the second half with Aiden Hutchinson, but that's going to happen.
Yeah.
The pass protection was unbelievable. It was like night and day if you look at Detroit pass protection trying to hold off the Eagles and the Eagles guys holding off the Lions. It was really a good day from a pass protection. I know Baldy put up that one clip where Jalen Hurts has got the ball for 6-7 seconds.
Yeah.
The ball's not coming out.
Doesn't come out. It's all off schedule, John. That's the other thing I think that's such an interesting part of this conversation is I don't say this as a knock on Hurts at all, but he's a tough quarterback to be a coordinator for because Ben Johnson was speaking this week and they asked him about like 50-50 balls. And he's like, with all due respect, like I don't game plan for 50-50 balls. I try and scheme players open to exploit coverages in the defense. If Caleb runs out of the pocket or the play breaks down, that's when you identify single coverage and you give your guy a shot. Like Jalen is all off schedule. And my point with that is Kevin Patullo you can't game plan for that. You can't draw up a play for that. You can't do anything about that. Kevin Patullo can only give the route where the ball's got to come out on the 5-step drop. It doesn't come out. It's a tough thing to do. That's not to take away from Jalen because I think he adds a lot with those off-schedule plays, but it does make it a lot harder to be an offensive coach on this team, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're exactly right. And I've tried to explain that for years. You don't game plan off-schedule stuff. So and I often talk about it when people would say, well, Jalen struggles in practice. He's gotten to be a better practice player. But early in this story, he wasn't a very good practice player. And I said, well, he would get frustrated. He would get frustrated because they blow the whistle. They don't let you because they're trying to protect you in training because it doesn't matter. So, they're blowing the whistle. Somebody gets near him. He's sacked. There's no way he's getting sacked in a game. He's just going to escape and go make a play.
Right.
But that's to the point of would the coaching staff like a different style of quarterback? And my answer is, again, if you give them true serum, yes, because you don't game plan for off schedule. You can't.
Right.
Now you can do some things. You have to teach your receivers what to do in scramble situations, make sure the spacing is as good as possible. And make sure there's a lot of things technique wise you have to do in those situations that you do have to teach, but ultimately it becomes sandlot football, for a lack of a better term, where it's just a guy go and make a play. And I'm glad Ben said that. I didn't see it, but yeah, because he's dealing with the same thing and with Caleb Williams, who's a tremendous athlete and makes some of the best throws you'll ever see when he's flushing right and just about to go out of bounds and he just flips it down the field 30 yards on the line. It's pretty impressive. That's not in the game plan of the Chicago Bears. So to his point, yeah, you don't when for instance, when you throw, which has been very successful to the Eagles, and I talked about this in the lead up to the Super Bowl last year. If you remember, I said, F it at this point when the blitz, because they struggled with the blitz and they've been better against the blitz this year, extremely better. Last year was a really, really big struggle, which is interesting. There's an obvious area of improvement, which
Right.
people says there's an obvious area of improvement. Last year was so bad. You remember leading up to the Super Bowl, what I said, just throw go routes. That's essentially giving up. And you're saying you're throwing a 50-50 ball, but you're saying my guy's going to get it. As a coaching perspective, it's like, well, we can't do what we need to do, so just give him a shot. And often it worked. But yeah, I think with the two biggest playmakers on this team, who are no longer the two biggest playmakers on this team, because it's probably this season, it's probably Devontae, even though he's coming off his worst game. The two biggest playmakers on this team by perception, by far, are Saquon Barkley and A.J. Brown. They're not playing well. That is really difficult for people to say, never mind agree with. They're not playing well.
Do you think A.J. Brown has lost his step?
He's not what he was. So now he claims it's not injury related, but he's dealt with the knee. He had a really difficult time playing through with that knee. He's dealt with hamstrings, multiple hamstrings. Maybe it is injury related. Hopefully it is injury related. If it's not injury related, it's even worse, because that means he has lost a step. But they're not playing well.
Chad
And
Ochocinco, John, was speaking, and I wonder if this has something to do with AJ. He said, I can tell what AJ is about to run from my couch, and I don't watch tape. That means
yeah,
I
I
think
saw.
coordinator.
Well,
So,
I mean, look,
I just think that's interesting, where it's like, if it's become, because they do run this risk averse, there's not a whole lot of variation to the routes that they run. Has it become simple for Meek Robertson, who watched game tape all week, to say, okay, AJ's going here? It's a lot easier to stick with AJ Brown if you know where he's going,
Yeah, well, it's the same though. So what's the difference? Look, they're conservative. They don't do a lot of things that I agree with, but it's the same as it was last year. So what's the difference? He certainly beat one-on-one coverage. Now he can't beat Meek Robertson and Rocky Sin.
Yeah. Rocky Sin had a good night, I thought.
Would have had a better night if they didn't screw him. But
Yeah.
who knows what happens? And I still don't think they're going to score, but because of how good the Eagles defense was. And by the way, I'm comparing AJ to his normal level of play. Of the two, Saquon's not been good. AJ's not been good compared to his former level of play. Still good, but just good. Like just a good receiver, not a great, not a second all team. Saquon, I mean, I'm at the point with Saquon, obviously the touches took something out of him. Especially when you see Tank Bigsby behind the same offensive line explode. And I'm not one of those people because throw Tank in there. No, no. Because the more he plays, the more he's going to get exposed. But just from the pure explosiveness, I mean, who would have predicted that? Tank Bigsby's more explosive than Saquon Barkley?
Yeah. Small sample size, but you're not wrong. Just feels like Barkley's looking for that home run too much this year. Just the eye test from him.
Well, that's part of it. That's definitely part of it. But
I mean? Like last year, he was so patient as a runner, and sometimes those holes just open up and boom, he exploded through them. Now it looks like he dances a little bit, waiting, and they don't come. Versus Tank comes in there, and he's just like a bat out of hell. Boom, get downfield,
And the Grant Calcaterra, Kylan Granson duo, playing 12. You can't play those guys as blockers.
Maybe JD3 was right about Harrison Brown.
Well, I don't know how Harrison's doing, but he couldn't be much worse. I'll tell you that. As a blocker, I still think Grant is a pretty good receiver, but they don't use him anyway. So what's the point? To me, but you have Cam Latu, who the one thing he's proven he can do is block. Why isn't he in there? I know McLean's been on that this week. I wasn't there yesterday because of my tire issues, but why isn't Cam Latu? Why you move him to fullback? Let him play tight end, what he is, and let him block. So there's plenty of things that you can criticize the coaching staff for. And I get that Kevin Patullo is the designated scapegoat. He's an easy scapegoat, and he's going to be sacrificed if you don't reach the pinnacle of what you're trying to reach. And that's easy, but that's not going to fix anything, because right now, and I just ran down the list of players, other than Devontae Smith and maybe Dallas Goedert, everybody on offense is worse than they were last year. Every single one of them. And Tyler, has played better than I expected, but he's not as good as Becton, especially in the running game.
That almost seems like a very improbable coincidence, almost an impossible coincidence.
Well, they're getting older. And there, if you want to blame the coaching staff for not coaching them up correctly, but I don't know, you really think Lane needs a lot of coaching up? You really think Landon needs a lot of coaching up? I mean, that's injury related. Cam's injury related. Jordan's just coming off an historic season to being just really good. So it's not, there's levels. Jordan's still playing really well.
It's pretty hard to replicate what he did last year.
But I keep going back to the point that everybody just created in their mind what this offense should be. And there's no evidence that it's ever been that offense. Ever. From a passing perspective. Running game, different conversation.
The other thing I think that's complicated for Patullo is you got this risk-averse approach that's been, that's been implemented by the head coach. A quarterback who relies on off-schedule plays. It's like, it's not an easy combination. That's like, again, I use the analogy of that's like telling Steph Curry you can't take a three-point shot anymore. You only get buckets at the rim. You're a limited player. You limit. I think Kevin Patullo is very limited in what he can call right now. Because he's got to abide by this risk-averse approach to not put the ball in harm's way. That's coupled with Jalen, who is not a timing or a rhythm passer of the football. I mean, that's a tough thing to call a game for. At least it feels like it is. I mean, I'm no offensive coordinator. I can't tell you that.
It ain't easy. That's why I say when you got a quarterback who can do what you ask him to do, that makes it. And I'm talking about that timing perspective you're talking about. It's a lot easier.
Any takeaways real quick, John, before we get Mike Gill? Any takeaways from Vic Fangio yesterday? He gave a shout out to Eastern University, baby. Big shout out to Eastern.
Yeah, who was that who yelled out something about Rowan getting screwed? I couldn't tell.
I think it was I'm not sure who it was that yelled that out, but
I like Vic's reaction.
Yeah, there's always a bitch and a whine.
Everybody whines about it. No matter what level of football, it's the officials' fault. It's everybody's fault but their own. That's just the nature of it. And that's what coordinators, Kevin Patullo is not the only one, believe me. There's been coaches already fired. We talked about one of them, Brian Daboll. That's part of the gig. You're hired to be fired. The great Bum Phillips said that decades ago. You're hired to be fired. It's just part of it.
Let's get Mike Gill up here. See what Mike Gill's got to say about this Eagles team. There is always something to talk about. It's like the easiest team to do a talk show on in the world, the freaking Eagles. Let's bring in Mike Gill. You'll follow him at Mike Gill Show. Go and subscribe to his YouTube channel. Listen to him at 97.3 ESPN down the shore. Mike, welcome to the program. How you doing today, my man?
The great Led Zeppelin song, guys. Nobody's fault but mine. That's what every single individual player on this offense needs to start singing. Nobody's fault but mine. You said it, John. Remember in the offseason when I came on and I wondered whether Zach Bond can be as good as he was last year? And could Cooper DeJean get better than he was last year? And Quinyon Mitchell be better than he was last year? We wondered about the defense because they lost 5 players. So we wondered, could this defense be as good, if not better? And I said, well, we're just taking for granted that all these guys are going to improve. And they all have pretty much. I don't know that Bond's having as destructive of a year, but he's not having a bad year.
No.
He's been as good, if not better. Mitchell's probably been better. But who thought on the offense that every single player would be worse? It's unbelievable. Every player on the offense is actually worse.
I think Devontae's having it. Well, last week he had a bad game, but I think overall he's a little bit better.
And Goddard's numbers might be better, but overall. And as you guys were talking about this is what the past game has been, I went back and looked. In 2021, they threw the ball 35 times, 39 times, 48 times, 37 times, 34 times in the first 5 games of the season. They wanted to throw the ball with this team.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I've explained that for years.
And they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. And I'll say this. The offensive line on that team was very good. And they acknowledged that. Let's use the line and run the ball. And they went to the playoffs. But this team wanted to be a passing offense. Nick Sirianni wanted this to be a passing offense. And he found out early, I cannot do it, and I'm going to have to pivot. And they have not been able to throw the ball like a normal NFL team since. And I say normal NFL team. You got crap burger teams that can throw the ball that win 3 games that have a better passing efficiency than this team here. It is unfathomable that a team that is
the only guys who have a worse efficiency are like Cam Ward and J.J. McCarthy, who are rookies and just brutal and don't know how to play the game. That's it. That's it.
It's unbelievable. Like, and I remember coming on here way back and say, with this group of guys, I mean, you should roll out of bed and be able to design an offense that scores 28 points a game, like just by accident. Like, shit, by accident, I scored 28 points. Because my personnel is so good, not because I'm any good, but because what you've given me is so good that a half jackass can score 28 points with this group of guys. You've got to.
Here's what I'll say, Mike. Here's what I'll say. They could score 28 points a game if they wanted to, and they probably win 10 games or 11 games and be 5 seed or 6 seed and go on the road in the playoffs. If they really wanted to, if they just wanted to spread it out and let Jalen Hurts throw it, they could do it. They could do it. They could score some points. Not going to win as much.
As we watch this team try to throw the ball week to week, though, are we starting to wonder if they could? In years past, it was, is that what you all wanted to see? We could do it if we really feel like it. They tried last week. They tried.
Yeah, but last week it was so windy. Look at Jared Goff.
I heard the Green Bay game was windy as well.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's see if they can.
But that's the point. There are those games. There's the Vikings game where he had a perfect passer rating. There's the Giants. They're few and far between. There's the halves. There's the first half against Tampa and the second half against, whichever, vice versa, whatever. There were halves early in the season. So I do think, and you know this, Mike, people get caught up in what they saw last. And they saw what they saw last, and they assume it's going to continue like that. Well, no. They're going to be in Dallas in a perfect environment, and they're going to look better. Are they going to look good enough? I don't know, but they're going to look better.
Better hope. I would say right now, I talked about this on my show yesterday, is Dallas really needs to win. If they want any shot to make the playoffs, they have to have this game. I mean, they're at 4 wins right now. I think 10 is going to be the number to get that 7th wild card spot. So they would have to win 6 games, really. They almost have to run the table here.
What do they got, 7 left? They got 7 left, right?
They have a tie. They do have a tie, which, keep in mind, they lose the tiebreaker to Carolina, who's got 6 wins. Carolina has 2 more wins than Dallas, and they beat Dallas. Now, I don't know that Carolina gets to 10, but that's going to be – they have a tough road. But even to get on that road, they have to win this game. And, it feels a lot – it's so funny, the parallels to that 2023 season. When you were 10-1, you got blasted by San Francisco, and then you played Dallas the next week and got Rochambeau'd by them too. And Dallas ended up catching you when nobody thought that was possible. Now, this is even a further gap than that was. But Dallas has it set up here to at least, I don't know that they catch you in the division, but they have a chance.
They can at least make December somewhat interesting if they win.
Exactly. And they have something now that they did not have and that you struggle with, which is they've got real talent in the interior of that defensive line. And the Eagles' interior right now struggles with that interior pass rush. I mean, Landon Dickerson's just not the same guy right now. You don't know what's going on at center. Obviously, Juergens had to leave the game. And Steen, I think, is much better in pass protection than he is as a run blocker. So this is an interesting matchup all of a sudden.
Well, it's also the number 1 ranked passing offense in the NFL.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting from that perspective. Mike, you gave a song, all right, a little Led Zeppelin song. I love the reference, by the way. I'm going to give you a song that maybe the fans should listen to. It's a Rolling Stones song. You can't always get what you want, all right? But maybe you'll get what you need on this team. Mike, where do you put the blame offensively? Is it Jalen Hurts? Is it Kevin Patullo? Is it the Nick Sirianni philosophy, who I must point out is 40-2 with this philosophy? I mean, somebody told me yesterday, Xander, you in a business. If you made 95% of, or made decisions that resulted in a 95% win rate, I can guarantee you wouldn't change your philosophy. To that, I said, touche. What do you put it on, Mike?
Well, there's a pie chart here, right? I mean, it's not one guy. I think the offensive line gets a heavy part of the pie chart. They can't do what they want to do successfully the way they have in the past because the formula is not there. They ran the ball with tremendous success in 2022, 2023, 2024, and they're not doing it right now because that offensive line is not the same. So that offensive line gets a big part of the pie chart because they want to run the ball. They can't do it to the success that they've had in their past. To which, okay, now we have to pivot a little bit. Now we have to try to get a little bit more creative, which then would go to the play design. Their passing game is elementary. I mean, it's pathetic what they're running with the routes that they're running with these guys. Now, maybe they're open. Maybe there's missed opportunities out there, but you are not maximizing the talent that you have in the pass game. And I get it. They don't want to be a pass team. They want to run the ball, but you're not running the ball. So therefore, I have to put some blame on them for not saying, hey, we are not doing what we did with the same success. So we're going to have to be better at this. And quite frankly, they're not very good at passing the ball. And then listen, they went under center. They started to run the ball under center. They don't build off of that at all. There's no play action. There's no like, hey, we're going to run the ball, take our shot down the field, run the ball, bootleg. Nothing. They do nothing off of being under center other than they run the ball under center. They put a play in last week with Devontae Smith in the backfield, and they play actioned it to him. Now, what asshole is going to think they're going to hand the ball off to Devontae Smith standing next to him like a high school running back? It's the most pathetic play design. They have no creativity in this offense at all. They build off nothing. It's like a wrestling match. There's a story that builds as the game goes on here. There's no story here. There's no like, hey, they ran that play in the third quarter, and that set this play up here late. Nothing. There's nothing with this offense that it surprises you or excites you. And I get it. This is how they've won. However, they are winning. But A.J. Brown said it, and I think we should listen to what the man said. You can't keep slapping a Band-Aid on this thing because eventually, I go back to this conversation I had with Britton Covey a couple years ago, and he said winning masks your issues. It just masks them. So you don't want to sometimes admit that you have problems because you constantly just keep saying, hey, we find ways to win. We find ways to win is translation. We're not as good as we think we are. We keep finding ways to win. Eventually that runs out on you. And I just look at this offense and wonder, they won the game against Detroit. And I have to think that offense is saying, we're not holding up our end of the bargain. And what happens when you don't hold up your end of the bargain? The cracks begin and the stories start. We don't like this guy, and this guy's hard to deal with, and I don't like the offense. That's what ends up happening, and that's how these things fold. So they better get their act together quickly because there's 7 weeks left of this, and that's a long time to have people infiltrating stories out there of, he don't like him, and that don't like him. 7 weeks isn't a lot of time in terms of the season, but it's a lot of time to let little stuff start filtering out there.
Mike, is the defense simply good enough for this team to keep winning? I mean, hear me out.
Sure.
Aren't the Lions the team that would – now, I get it, the weather. Me and John have talked about that at length. They're the team, though, like that I was like, we can't play offense this way versus the Lions. They're going to score points. We hold them to 9 points. Packers, another team that I thought could put up some points. They don't score any points on – like this defense has – gotten better and better each week, and it almost feels like now they're at a level where maybe we can rely on that defense. I mean, if they get a bunch of stops, we put up a couple touchdowns a game, maybe 14 points a game. I don't know. That might be enough with this defense.
Listen, yes, the defense is good enough, but this is the NFL. You can't win 10-6, 16-6 every single week. There's a week in there where your defense, hey, listen, I said the other day, people are like, well, Dallas beat the Raiders. The Raiders suck. Okay, I'll play along. You know what you're supposed to do when you play a bad team? Kick the crap out of them. The Eagles went to the Giants. What happened in that game? You didn't kick the crap out of that team. You got your ass kicked. So Dallas, yes, beat a crappy Raiders team, but they did what they're supposed to do. And the last time I checked in that game, Philadelphia's defense got the crap beat out of them in that defense. And by the way, the week before, they played Denver. And while their defense wasn't awful all game long, in the fourth quarter, when the offense said, hey, guys, help us out, and it's not their fault, I'm not saying, but they couldn't hold on and win that game. You can't count on them to give up 16 points every game. There's going to be a week in there where they give up 20 or 24. And can your offense score 27? I mean, we're at the point now, we're not sure this team can score 20 points in a game. Now, I get the weather. I do want to see how big of a factor. But I know in all the years that I've been doing this, there's been windy games before. And I don't remember seeing offense this terrible where you're just like, my God. And
well, here's why I bring up the weather. Look at the other side.
I was
like,
say, I
know
the other side having their issues, I think certainly.
See, here's the thing to me, Mike. Everybody's like, well, the defense played great, and they did, but they had a 12th defender, which was the wind.
Exactly. So how much can that defense say, hey, we were awesome, but we were also awesome because of the wind helping us out and balls not being completed. That look, go back to the Dallas game in week 1. Now, I know the defense is better than that, but it only takes one game where your defense just doesn't have it that day, and they give up 21. And if that's the case, and you say, how many times did the Eagles go into the playoffs with those Buddy Ryan teams counting on their defense? Never got it done.
Yeah.
How many times did they go into the playoffs with those Brian Dawkins teams and count on their defense? I was at a 14-9 playoff game against the Carolina Panthers. They couldn't get it done. The defense couldn't get the stops when they wanted to get the stops. You can't count. And listen, all it takes is one awful referee call in that game the other night. That's not a pass interference against A.J. Brown. They got bailed out in that game. And if their defense could have balled out, now I'd probably still win that game because Detroit's down 2 scores. My point is if that's a 1-score game or that's a field goal game.
That was a 1-score game at that point. They could have tied the game.
That's right. Oh, yeah. In that moment, you're right. It was a 1-score game. So, That's all it takes. You can't depend on your defense to win 10 more weeks. 10 more weeks they have a football left to go.
But here's to that point,
I say
though,
10
and
if you want to get to the Super Bowl. You want to get to the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
And that's why I bring that up, because it works both ways. Like, people want to say, well, the defense was great and the offense stinks, but they don't want to factor in the wind. Well, the wind might have affected the offense and helped the defense. This offense has scored 38 points against the New York Giants, coming back from that awful first performance. They scored 28 points in Minnesota with a perfect passer rating. They had the great half in Tampa Bay where they ended up scoring 30 points. Now, help with special teams. Rams, 33, help with the field goal block. But still, representative offensive performances. Like, I don't think they are what they are offensively because of the Detroit and the Green Bay game, because the weather was an issue. And if you don't believe that, look at the Packers, who have a top 10 offense. Look at the Lions, who have a top 10 offense. That was the worst game Jared Goff ever played. Part of it, yes. Hat tip to Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Moro Ajomo and Jalen Phillips. Phenomenal performance. But part of it was the weather. And the weather is going to be pristine. So if they score 10 points in Dallas, or if they score 16 points in Arlington, I'd like to be correct. Yes, then pile on. Especially against that defense, which, by the way, is getting a little bit better. It's terrible, but their safeties are healthy. Overshown's back. They got Williams to add to Kenny Clark. It's getting better. Matt Eberflus is starting to figure it out. And they're the number one ranked passing offense in the NFL. They can score some points. They're going to have to score some points in that game. And there's no wind that's going to save them. Maybe the curtains are not closed and maybe somebody misses a drop ball because it's so sunny. But it's going to be a perfect environment for offense. And they're going to have to score some points. And if they don't, then I'm here on the post-game show. I'll be here all next week, and I'll be piling on. But to look at those two particular games and not see that the weather had an impact, I don't agree with that.
Oh, I definitely think it had an impact in the pass game. No question. Doesn't have an impact in the run game.
No. I'm talking about the passing game specifically.
Right. I'm saying. And I do agree that it obviously affected both Green Bay, Detroit, Philadelphia. So all three teams were pedestrian in the passing game in the last, 2 games. The one thing that really stands out to me, Green Bay, Carolina ran the ball all over them. They couldn't stop them. The New York Giants ran the ball all over them. They couldn't stop the Giants' run game. The Eagles could not run the ball against Green Bay. I get it. Just because they're all different games, but I'm the Philadelphia Eagles. I want to run the ball. You're telling me the Carolina Panthers and the New York Giants came in with a game plan of we want to run the ball against you, and they can pull it off, and you can't find a way to do it? That's concerning to me. That's what I'm wondering about is why can Carolina say, we're going to go right at you?
There's no threat in the passing game, Mike. Is it that? There's no freaking threat. 5 guys on the offensive line. I don't care if you have 5 Lane Johnsons. They're not going to block 8 guys. John pointed it out. The Lions played press man coverage all game, and Amik Robertson and Rock Ya-Sin were running in stride with our receivers. They got 8 guys in the box. No shit, we can't run the ball.
Yeah. Well, and I look at, the Giants, who do not have a very good offensive line, right? That's not a good offensive line over there. Their back is out, so they're on to their, second or third back at this point of the game. And the only reason they're really in that game, is because they did have some threat of the passing game. I mean, Jameis Winston makes mistakes, but at least they think he might throw the ball on them. But they ran the ball 38 times for 142 yards against Green Bay. I mean, it's not like they had 6-7 yards of carry, but they just pounded them, and it kept them in that game. The week before, I mean, Carolina ran the ball all over them. They just couldn't stop the run. If you watch that game, the Green Bay Packers can't stop the run a lick. And they had a pretty, they stopped you.
Well,
in
yeah,
running the game.
Jameis Winston is a great example because Jameis, he can throw the ball and he's also going to throw a ton of interceptions.
Right.
Remember Nick Mullins, who was here for a very brief period,
yeah.
and he was coming back from an elbow injury, wasn't healthy. When he got to play, it was the craziest thing. He got to play in San Francisco at one point. He got to play in Minnesota at one point because of injuries. He's a guy who was on pace to throw for like 5,000 yards and 40 interceptions. If he played a full season. He could throw it all over, and then he'd make the stupidest throw you ever seen and turn the football over. Like I said, be careful what you wish for, man. Be careful what you wish for, because the one thing that's going to kill you in this league is turnovers.
No doubt. Well, listen, John, I'm not asking for turnovers. I'm saying Rico Dowd had 25 carries for 130 yards.
Well, and that
takes
me back to the original conversation, which is the two perceived biggest playmakers on this team are not playing well or not playing up. And I hate to say that about AJ, but flat out, if you look at AJ, here's his PFF rankings: number 2, number 5, number 6, number 9, number 4. That's his entire career. This year, he's 34th. That's still well above average, but he ain't the same player. Now, Saquon, they got 59 running backs graded. He's number 43. Number 43. Now, and remember, they're grading if an offensive lineman misses a block, they don't mark the running back down. That's not the running back's fault. They're looking at his particular job and what he's doing, and he's the 43rd best running back in the NFL. There's only 32 teams. At some point, we all got to admit those 482 touches that we never stopped talking about have turned him into a different player, at least this season. He's not playing well.
Hey, listen, I think you can I would agree. You just have to look at the touches Bigsby's getting. I mean, there's certainly more burst, more speed, more explosion in those few Bigsby carries. He's getting 9 yards a carry. Are they calling different plays? Yeah, I think actually, Bigsby seems to be getting stuff on the outside a little bit more, some more pinch stuff where he's hitting the corners. But it's weird. And I hate, like, when they gave Saquon that extension, the first thing I said was, that's admirable, but why would you do that? Like, you didn't have to do that.
You said it on the show. You said it on.
I said it on this show. I said it on my show. It's admirable for the organization. It's a pat on the back to acknowledge your work.
It's a thank you.
Yes.
And it's a thank you.
And that's a great way to do business. Listen, we all wish our boss would come to us and say, you don't even need to ask, here's more money. But for a running back, after a 2,000-yard year where you just talked about the touches, that's probably not the time to say, here's even more money. You're paying him for the year that he had, not the years he's about to have. And you got to wonder if you need to now maybe use Tank Bigsby a little bit more in these games just to lessen his load a little bit. And that's, there's a lot here. I don't know about you guys, but we hear this stuff about the quarterback and the relationships. And I look at the TV and I see Saquon Barkley on every freaking commercial there is. And you wonder, you go to Major League 2, Charlie Sheen. It's just like, why is this guy getting every commercial? What's he getting every commercial for? He's getting 38 yards this game and he's on every single, like there is jealousy involved and the best teams can block that out. But is there infiltrating of he's on this commercial, he got on that commercial, this guy's doing this? You just hope that that's not the case in some of these situations, because every time you hear about, these two guys don't get along or that doesn't happen, you're thinking, how does that happen? You win the Super Bowl. How does the relationship start to fracture when you're winning? It's such a look. 53 guys, they don't all have to like each other. That we know. But if it's starting to get out, that it's becoming a problem on a team that wins, that's concerning.
handling success is an underrated part of it. That's why, Mike and I are basketball guys as well. And I always bring up, look, if you're down a point with 10 seconds left, I want Larry Brown drawing up that play. Smartest basketball guy I've ever been around by far. I want him drawing up that play to go win a game. If you want to go win a championship, I want Phil Jackson, because he's the one who's going to manage personalities. He's going to manage the superstars. He's going to manage exactly what you're talking about, Mike. Why is Kobe getting all the endorsements? Why is Shaq getting all the endorsements? You got to manage that shit. I joked about Saquon. At one point, every morning in my inbox, I'd get another Saquon endorsement. And the part of that is people don't realize, like, that shit happens in the off season. So a lot of people, well, he's got to get back in there. He's not doing this shit on his, Wednesday when they're practicing. This is all done in the off season. So he's still working hard. My concerns with Saquon are the 482 touches.
Oh, yeah. I'm not suggesting that it's part of the reason why his play isn't. A couple of weeks ago, I do a segment every Tuesday and Thursday. Casey Joyner from The Athletic is kind of an analytics guy. And we do one thought every game, where basically he gives, his reaction to every single game of the schedule, but we go a little deeper on the Eagles game. And one of the things he said to me, this was like 3 or 4 weeks ago, was that Saquon Barkley isn't making people miss. Last year, the metrics said this and this. And I kind of like, that just seems kind of asinine, if you ask me, right? I mean, I'm not an analytic, focused guy, but I appreciate that. I'm not going to push his opinion off, but at that time when he said that to me, I'm like, I think of the offensive. No, I do think the offensive line is a big problem there. But was he right? Is he looking at this and saying, look, he's not making people miss. When he gets hit now, he's going down, not after contact, getting through it. Last year, he was constantly getting to that second level, making people miss. The thing to me, going back to the original question 30 minutes ago, Zander, which was who gets the blame. The Eagles would be up 17-7, 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They had run the ball all game long. They had beat the crap out of that defense, and then they'd hit a home run, and 17-7 became 24-7. And then they might get another one to make it 31-7. Saquon would hit a 60-yarder, and he might get one more. Or they threw a bomb and just put the game away, and it was 31-7. So you're like, man, this team is just so dominant. They were so dominant up front. They ran the ball all day long. They just beat the crap out of that defense. And then Saquon would get that second level, and bang, he would hit it to the corner, and you couldn't catch him. Game over. You got 8 minutes left in the game right now. That game ain't over. It's a punt fest because you're going 3 and out. You cannot hit that big home run. So they're up 17-7, and the game ends 17-7 because they can't finish that game off. That, to me, is the big difference. The offensive line cannot get the job done. So Barkley can't do what he did, and therefore these games are similar to what they were last year. Ugly, turnover leads to score. You have a 10-point lead. But that 10-point lead grew in the fourth quarter with 8 minutes left, generally, because they either ran that game out and made it 24-7, or they scored and then scored again because the defense was so whipped from that offensive line. So the pie chart goes offensive line, not the same, by no fault of their own. How many tush pushes have they run over the years that we all love and things? Those guys are beat up, man. This line has been together for 4 years.
Oh, yeah, they're definitely beat up. They're definitely beat up.
You got Mailata, Dickerson, Lane. Those 3 guys have been together through the whole thing. You've got now Juergens, who played guard, then he moved to center. So he's 4 guys who have been a part of this thing for the last 3 seasons. They get a lot of wear and tear for a team that runs the ball as much as they do.
Maybe I'm just a simpleton about it, but I'm watching.
You can't get more simple than turn ball.
I'm watching Brian Baldinger though break down this offensive line. Hurts has 5, 6, 7 seconds to throw.
That's
the ball.
In the pass game, though.
But if those balls start coming out on time, all right, even for 20% of the time, and they can move the ball a little bit through the passing game that way, You don't think that opens things up for the running game?
Oh, I
think
agree.
Everything is condensing down on this offense because all they did last year was run. They come in, they don't have anything in the passing game. They don't have complex routes. They don't try and push the ball through the air. They try and keep running it down people's throats. Teams are stuffing 8 men in the box, and now the offensive line looks pedestrian.
Yeah, I agree. In the pass game, their offensive line is doing a good job. They are pass protecting well, and Hurts is not a guy to throw with anticipation. He's not throwing you open. He's throwing the deep ball is one of his specialties where he'll throw it to where no one else can catch it except for your guy. He's not throwing the ball over the middle of the field as you're in your break and you're turning and that ball's leading you. That's not the quarterback that he is. He's not a 1-2-3 bang, 1-2-3 bang, 1-2-3. He is develop, wait, and it's going to be interesting because it's not that Fred Johnson's going to give up sack after sack after sack, but is he going to get pushed back to the point where you're going to have to get off your spot and move where you didn't have to do that with Lane Johnson? Lane Johnson, bang, he sticks his guy and he's not getting pushed back into you. Fred might not give up the sack, but is he going to get pushed back into you a little further? That now you have to move. He does hold on to the ball too long because he does not throw with anticipation. He does not throw you open. That is one of the issues with him. When I talk about the offensive line, it is strictly in the run where they have dominated in years past, and they are pedestrian in that role right now.
I compare it to the rest of the league. So I kind of agree with your sentiment when comparing it against last year's team, which is one of the greatest offensive lines, I believe. And I was told that by a former NFL general manager, literally one of the greatest offensive lines of all time. I agree. They're not up to that standard. I never thought you could replicate that. For what it's worth, BFF's got them as the 9th best run blocking offensive line in football. That's 32 teams. Now they're better in pass blocking. They're number 5, but top 10 in both.
I think the offensive line is a cop out for people. I do not think that's the problem. I really don't.
I comparatively, contextually to the rest of the league, they got a damn good offensive line still.
Well,
compared to their offensive line last year, no, not nearly as good.
When you watch them play, are you seeing then Saquon missing holes? Or are you watching guys get pushed into a V into the middle and Saquon's trying to find his way out of it?
Yeah, I mean, well, I started the show. He's not the same guy, Saquon Barkley. Like if you're going to make me
have the running lanes and he's not getting there.
Well, he doesn't have the running lanes he had last year, which was an historic, as I said, one of the best offensive lines of all time.
Guys, if they pass the ball, am I losing my mind? If this is the second year in a row that they're a largely inept passing offense. If they could pass the ball a little better, would that not open things up for the running game? I get it. Like you're right. The holes aren't there.
I think you're being generous with the second year in a row.
The holes aren't there. But like everything is condensing on this offensive line. That's the only thing they do offensively.
4.5, yeah.
I asked John on Monday, which offense is better? This offense or the 2023 team that fell apart? And your answer was not even close, that team in 2023.
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Offensively?
Their offensive line was exceptional that year. And you had the same group. I mean, it's AJ, it's Devontae, it's Dallas, except for the running back on that team was what? DeAndre Swift,
who had a good year, Pro Bowl year.
Right.
Good year.
The one difference that you have now. But you had a line that was 2 years younger. That offense was probably better. Now, the defense on that team was horrendous.
It might have been the worst in the NFL by the time the season ended.
The defense was good enough to get you to 10-1 at one point. If you remember, they had wins over Miami, who was kicking everyone's ass that year, and they shut them down. They went on the road and won at Kansas City. They beat Buffalo. It wasn't like they were winning games against bad teams. They were beating good teams that year. So this team has an eerie, same feeling of they're beating good teams, but that team every week, they just find ways to win, and that's what good teams do. We're having
dumbest Sirianni decision ever. It was firing, he didn't fire him, demoting Sean Desai. Not because Sean was great, but to your point, Mike, people forget, they usually do. They had some good defensive performances.
Yeah.
They didn't have any good defensive performances when they tried to change the defense.
I often reference this Britton Covey conversation that I had with him at the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. And I went back and listened to it the other day because we used some audio from it. And he said in that conversation that coordinator change was really hard on those defensive players. Like, they would talk after the game about how confused they were about, they were changing defenses on the fly. And this is why you can't just get rid of Petula. And I would say this about Kevin Petula. I don't know if he's going to be good or not. I don't know if he's going to be able to work out, but you better damn sure he does. You want another new offensive coordinator? How many is that going to be? 9, 10? I mean, you need to have some consistency at that spot. And even if he doesn't have a great end of this year, you almost better hope that they give him another shot to see.
I would agree with that. Because not many people would.
People are saying, bring Brian Daboll in, bring in Brian. Like, you want another new play caller?
Man, this is the guy's been a coach in the NFL for 16 years. People really think he doesn't know how to call a crossing route?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Well, I would say, I was talking about this the other day. People just act like we always want to blame the offensive coordinator. Okay, I'll play along, right? It's the offensive coordinator. He sucks. How many offensive coordinators get hired to be head coaches? And then they go someplace and they fail and they suck. It's not just calling plays that magically opens up these offenses. We talk about it all the time. It's the execution of the play. If you don't have the talent, you could be the best play caller in the world, and at the end of the day, it's not good enough. Brian Daboll, fired. Brian Callahan, fired. Mike McCoy, fired. These guys are all offensive coordinators that got hired because they had talent. When they go to a team that doesn't have talent, you can't just be some boy wonder play caller, and I think that things are going to work for you. So, yes, I think Petula is part of the pie here, but he has the talent. They are not executing. And if they would execute, you talk about Jalen Hurts not throwing the ball. If he gets the ball out of his hand, most of those plays are probably going to be completed and be successful, but he's not getting the ball out of his hands. So the play might be elementary, but guess what? You have the talent that you can run an elementary play. And if you just say, pitch, catch, A.J. Brown, and he pitches it and A.J. Brown catches it, there's a lot of times in this league, if you haven't noticed, guys can't tackle. You break a tackle and a 3-yard play turns into a 7-yard play. Sometimes simplicity is the answer to the question, and they can't even get that right.
All right, Mike, this is an interesting game this weekend, Cowboys, that John pointed out. They got an amazing passing game. They're really moving the ball well. Dak Prescott's having a great year.
George Pickens, baby. What a player.
Yeah. As Vic Fangio stated yesterday at his press conference, for all the fans who were mad at me for saying Dak's having a good year, Dak's having a great year. What do you got in this game? Is this a weird trap type of game for this Eagles team? Who do you think wins?
Oh, listen, I thought opening night was going to be, people just think Dallas stinks, blah, blah, blah. Listen, they had so many injuries last year. Then they trade Parsons, and that just piles on. I think in the end of the day, I know people that are Cowboy fans, they're actually thinking that they won that trade all of a sudden, right? They're like, we won that trade getting rid of Parsons. And their defense is starting to come around. I know you're laughing about that, but that's what Cowboy fans, I had people.
Fans think a lot of things. But go ahead.
Well, a lot of people perceive him to be kind of a one-trick pony. He can't stop the run, all that kind of stuff. But their defense is certainly better. Now, I think one thing lost in the sauce here is opening night, no Jalen Carter. You were banged up on your defensive side of the ball as well. So the Eagles' defense wasn't where they are now. But their offense is every bit as good, if not better, than certainly Green Bay. Green Bay doesn't have the weapons on the outside that this team does. Detroit does. Detroit definitely has the weapons that this team has. I think people hate Dak Prescott. Whenever he plays, that team generally is pretty good. I mean, he's been the engineer of teams that win 13 games. Now, Do they win the big game? Maybe he can't win the big game, but he can win a lot of games. I think their offense is very challenging for this team in week one. What was the narrative after the game? You got to get Adoree Jackson off the field. It's going to be the same matchup, right? I'm sure they're going to look at Adoree Jackson again and say, what did we do against you in week one? And that could be a matchup that is a big problem for Philadelphia, whoever he's matched up with, whether it's Lamb or Pickens. I don't like that matchup. So the question for me would be, can Philadelphia win a shootout type of game? And when I say shootout in the Eagles terms, that might be 24-21 with this offense. I don't think they can get to 41 if it's 41-38, something like that. I think the Dallas defense is better than it was in the opener. I think that the Eagles defense is better than it was in the opener. But I think the Dallas offense is probably a lot further along in week 12 than they were in week 1. And that will be the big matchup for me. Is their offense, which scored 20 points that night or something, what was it, 27-20 or something like that?
Yeah, I think 24.
Have they come far enough along if they come far enough along in the 12 weeks where they have a couple extra wrinkles that they didn't have in week 1? And I think it's going to be a very interesting game. You're on the road. The Eagles haven't played well there. Dak Prescott's like 50-0, it seems like, against NFC East teams in that building. So put it this way. You say there's never a dull moment. I wouldn't be surprised if Monday wasn't dull.
Good stuff.
29.6 points per game, the Dallas Cowboys. They're what you want to be offensively. At Mike Gill Show, at Mike Gill Show on YouTube as well. Follow him on X at Mike Gill Show. Listen to him, 97.3. By the way, play-by-play, how's it going with the, what do they call them now?
Yeah, Lucas.
Lucas.
I called Saturday's game. Jared McCain, I thought looked pretty good. Nick Nurse was there, so I was a little surprised that he did not get a lot of run in the game on Monday night against.
Yeah, they got to get him back involved, man. I don't know. He didn't play well.
He looked good on Saturday, very McCain-ish, dribble drive deep into the lane, then kind of that little fallback jumper, little reverse spin on the baseline. I thought he looked good. He looked spry. He played 20 minutes. They didn't play him in the second half, but he scored 15 points. I thought he looked pretty good. I was a little surprised they didn't use him there. By the way, Sunday, I will be back in Philly on the Fanatic from 10 to 12:30. So you can hear me up in Philly on Sunday from 10 to 12:30. I'll probably be back making some periodic appearances here and there.
Hopefully you bring the truth like you brought it today. Philly needs it, Mike Gill. Philly needs it. This city's going soft. Mike, we appreciate it, man.
I bring it every day, 2 to 6, baby. You like what you hear? Tune me in. There's the show right there.
Boom, at Mike Gill Show. Mike, thank you, dude. We appreciate it, brother.
Thanks, bud.
See ya.
All right, later, dude. There's Mike Gill joining us right here on Birds 365. A lot of good conversation there. Whoa! Johnny Mac. Holy shit, a lot of good conversation on this team, man. This is an interesting football team, is it not?
Yeah, it never stops with this team. But at the end of the day, I do think, when I talk about that, this is the team. They can throw the ball all over the lots. As I mentioned, 29.6 points per game. Number 1 passing offense. Number 2 in points per game. But they give up 29.3 points per game. So they're down at the bottom. As Mike pointed out, now they're a lot better now than they were at the beginning of the season or for most of the season, because they got Quentin Williams. He showed up in his first game. You saw the difference from the talent perspective. The safeties are back. They were not healthy. They're back. They're good players. Overshawn's back. He's a good player, very athletic, so they're best. But here's also, when you're a high-volume passing offense, and this is literally the highest volume passing offense to this point in the NFL season, -4 on the season. Giveaway, takeaway, -4. So what happens?
I know, but sometimes, John, as much as I love your explanations, is there not like a middle ground? Like
there is a middle ground, and you know what, Zander? You'd make a lot of money if you could figure it out. Because if you could throw But the way the Cowboys throw and not turn it over, you'd make a
No, I'm
lot
not
of money.
talking about that though. Like, John, we literally are top of the league in 3-and-outs. Like, we can't get a little better at that while
Well,
also
they have to get better at that.
I'm not asking you to be the Cowboys
Yeah, but
or the Lions.
we've talked about that ad nauseum. That's about staying ahead of the schedule. That's about not, shooting yourself in the foot. No false starts. No no negative plays. And they've had a shitload of negative plays. I mean, yeah, they need to clean that up. And if you clean that up and you're on schedule, you're fine. But they haven't been able to clean that stuff up. And the stuff, as Nick will say, the stuff that takes no talent, that's what really pisses him off. He's talking about pre-snap penalties. Obviously, you have to clean that up. And then the tackles for losses, the constant Saquon getting trapped in the backfield, they got to clean that up. And that's what we talked about. Part offensive line, part Saquon, which is blah, blah, blah. Contextually, the offensive line is still good when compared to its peers in the NFL. Contextually, Saquon has not been good. So that's why I lean, if that's 50-50, I'm going to lean more Saquon than offensive line. But they have to fix it. Doesn't matter whose problem it is. Doesn't matter who I judge. They got to fix it and haven't been able to fix it. And then you're fine. Then you're back to last year, which is still, there's still not a good passing offense, but you're fine. But the passing offense has got more to do with the quarterback, obviously, than anybody else. This is a good pass protection team. Damn good pass protection team. Now, that might change with no Lane Johnson. You can't just leave Fred out there by himself. You got to change. Maybe that helps because you have to do things a little bit differently, and maybe you have to, stop relying on just pure talent, and maybe that spurs some, in a silver lining type of way. Maybe that creates some better thought process when it comes to creativity, because you have to be a little bit more creative than just say, Lane will handle this side, Jordan will handle this side.
Let's go to some super chats here. A lot of interesting conversation today. I'm sure the hate comments will be rolling in today.
Oh, yeah.
Here's God. Bird Gang. What up, Bird Gang? John's right. It's on the players, but why isn't Petula running RPO, which Jalen is actually good at? The offensive coordinator stinks on ice, as John would say.
Yeah, he's not good at it. You know why he's not good at it? Because it's a timing play. And you know all those downfield penalties? Those are Jalen Hurts penalties. Because the offensive line has no freaking idea what the defensive player you're reading is going to do. So from an offensive line's perspective, it's a running play. And if you pull that ball, it's got to go out immediately in the timing or they're downfield. And so you say penalty number 56 and everybody, that stupid asshole's downfield. That stupid asshole's doing exactly what he's taught to do. RPO is a timing play. And if you don't have the right timing and you hesitate a millisecond and the officials are doing their job correctly, this ain't college where they're going to go, oh, he's 3 yards down the line. They're not going to call it. They're going to call it. And that's why the Eagles don't use as many RPOs as they did in the past, because they were getting flagged for too many of those penalties, which sets you back and gets you off schedule. And everybody's like, how many times have you heard that, Sandra, over the years? Another one? That is a quarterback penalty. It is not an offensive line penalty. How many people know that?
John, is this margin for error gotten too small?
It's always been small.
So. I know, but it feels like it's like a thin hair now, man.
I thought it was a thin hair last year, but
yeah, but at least you had the crutch of what you had. That crutch has been eliminated and removed.
It has been, but maybe they figure out something. Maybe Saquon bounces back. Who knows? But they got,
basically, I mean,
but either way, it's going to be small. It was small last year. People just didn't recognize it because, again, the Rams game, yes, you can always play the if this, if that, but that's how close they were to being eliminated. That's a small margin of error. Basically, one block ends your season.
Theodore. Here's Theodore Nicholas. What's up, Theo? If this great defense can overcome 5 to 6 3 and outs, it can overcome a couple turnovers from Hurts. Let Hurts throw.
Don't turn the fucking football over. Don't turn the football over. No, nothing destroys any team more than turning the football over.
Yeah, but
-2 in the turnover margin.
So you're telling me like it's better to just do that and have like an inept offense, basically?
The only team I've seen in my entire time, and I'm too old, of covering this league and following this league closely, the only team successful, not giving a shit, literally the only team not giving a shit about turnovers that was successful was the Mike March Rams offense, and I give him credit because he ran the offense. The greatest show on turf. They didn't care.
Yeah, but that nobody's also not many teams have played like we do, where we literally have simplified our offense to the point where it looks pedestrian. It looks like a high school offense because all they want to do is not have turnovers. Like, is there no middle ground there? You go to Rams where they don't care at all. I'm not saying don't care at all. We can't open.
Oh, there's obviously a middle ground because nobody in the history of the game, similar to, has been as successful with ball security as the Eagles. Literally,
right.
Jalen Hurts is now in the best streak in NFL history. Every team, not just the Eagles, 583 passes, I believe, 2 interceptions. No one's ever gone 500 passes before with 2 or fewer interceptions in any span. Any span. It could be week 3 to week 3 of one season and week 3 to week 10 of any span in league history. So they do it better than anybody else. So of course there's a balancing line. Nobody typically takes care of the football. But where there's not a balancing line, if you're -2 or -3 consistently, you're losing a lot of football games. A lot of football games. A lot. Now, they have more talent than some of these teams. Like you see, I hate to pick on those young quarterbacks, but those teams lose the turnover ratio every single game. It's no coincidence that they're not competitive when they do. Let me look at last week's games, in the bad quarterbacks. I don't want to pick on JJ. Justin Fields is a perfect example. With the Jets. Okay. So we'll go down that route. They lost 17-16. He turned it over 2 times. They're -2 and they lose 19-17. Sorry, they were ahead 17-16. And they gave up a big kick return, and they lost the game in the final seconds. He had one good drive to come back in the fourth quarter, deserves credit. So they look dead in the water. They're up 17-16. They got to navigate 50 seconds. He turned the football over. If he doesn't turn the football over, they win that game handily because the defense played well. Everybody played well except the quarterback turning the football over. You can't turn the football over. You're going to lose. Now, the Mike March Rams could overcome it. And even them, it's not like they were, trying to turn it over. Their just belief was, all right, if Kurt Warner throws in it, it's not like he threw a lot of interceptions. But if he does, we're gonna just continue to play and press the issue. And they were so explosive offensively. Obviously, the Eagles can't be that, number one. People who think that are insane. This is their formula, and their formula is heavily dependent on winning that turnover battle. And look, Zander gave you the number 40-2 in the Nick Sirianni era when
Nick's
they win
been
the
right.
turnover battle. 40-2. That is a .952 winning percentage. If they don't turn the football over, you're pretty comfortable with a 95% winning percentage?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I am. I'm just saying. I mean, you know, I feel like this offense is eventually the chickens are going to come home to roost from a sense of even if they win, this thing's going to get blown up because as Mike pointed out, people are unhappy. You know, the only way to ruin a golden era of the Eagles is from within. They don't move the ball. They don't do anything well on offense. I get it. They don't turn the ball over and they're 40-2. I actually think Nick Sirianni is right to say, shut up, everybody. I don't give a fuck what you say. My only point is like it feels
his
like
job, and he's amped it up in the past couple of weeks. His job is to win games, and it is. I mean, if he doesn't win games, how's he going to get fired? If he doesn't win games, Jalen's got that same philosophy. You know, it's very rare you're going to have, like, you know, it's very rare when you have a quarterback accepting of this play. There are quarterbacks. The vast majority of big time quarterbacks.
Yeah, if Jalen had a different skill set, would they play this style?
No, of course not. Okay. Of course not. Again, I bring it up, but Kerr brought up Justin Herbert. If they had they play differently. Yes, they play differently. They had Tanner McKee. They played differently. If he was starting, they would play differently. That's good coaching. You build around what you have. You know, if they have a bad quarterback, but who can throw the football all over the field and can't run, they're going to play differently. Like Nick Mullins. If they had Nick Mullins, if you would have saw Nick Mullins play here, they probably would have thrown for 300 yards and had 4 interceptions.
Right.
Trying to accentuate what they have. I mean, it's just what you do as a coach or what you should do. Some don't. And Nick has proven that he will change. And that's how, and I'm glad, you know, I haven't talked about that for a while. I'm glad Mike brought it up. Those first 5 games of the Nick Sirianni era, all they did was throw the ball. All he did, he wanted to come in and play his Phillip Rivers offense. And it wasn't working. So he shipped it. And the rest is history, by the way. Pretty damn good run.
Here's Pumper. He says, Mr. Limited is the issue. He's been an issue for years. Grady had one good game that he stole the MVP from Sweaty. Whoop-de-doo. Russ Broncos phase.
Yeah, no. Yeah, and that's the thing, you know, again, because he plays in a unique fashion and he doesn't play the style that most people who watch football their entire lives think quarterbacks should play. Okay. It's different doesn't mean bad. He's had a hell of a lot more good games than one good game in the Super Bowl. His loss in the Super Bowl was better than his win in the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts has had a shitload of good games for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's unconventional. He doesn't do it the way you're supposed to do it for many years. So is he limited at certain things that, again, we'll use the hated Justin Herbert? Yes. Can Justin Herbert do some things that Jalen Hurts does? Absolutely not. It's a different style. And the Eagles are leaning into that style.
Yeah. Again, as I said earlier in the week, you got to be enlightened on the offense. Just accept that they're going to stink because they only don't want to turn it over. A couple more supers, then we got BLG coming up.
That's not exactly what I said, but that's a big part of their success.
Well,
and by the way, it ain't easy being risk averse. I don't even care how risk averse you are, how cautious you are. It ain't easy throwing 580 passes in this league and getting 2 interceptions. That is astonishing.
I get
that
it.
Is one of the greatest beats in NFL history. How about that? Clip that for everybody that says I hate Jalen Hurts. That is astonishing.
Bird Gang says the offensive line this year is better than any Giants O-line he ran behind. So what are we talking about?
That is correct. That is an excellent point. Saquon is not playing the way he played last season, which is not that, how do you play to that level anyway? But significantly different. 482 touches. We all talked about it. I think it's at the point where, it took something out of him. I don't think that should be controversial at all. He's not the same guy.
Bunch more super chats we'll get to here by the end of the show. Appreciate everybody for being here. Let's go to BLG joining us right now. Brandon Lee Goutin joins us here on Birds 365 on a Wednesday edition. You can follow him at Brandon Goutin. Read all his work at Bleeding Green Nation. BLJ, never a dull moment in Eagle Land. How you doing, my friend?
Never a dull moment. Team is 8-2, and there are so many things to talk
Number
about.
1 seed, favorite for the Super Bowl on most betting markets, and everybody thinks they stink. I don't know, BLG. I think this fan base may have crossed the line into full-fledged, whether you want to call it Bill Russell Celtics spoiled. I don't want to go that much when it comes to dynasties, but this is a good football team, and they do it. You probably heard me there. I think you were in the green room, unconventionally.
Mm-hmm.
But does that mean it's bad? Unconventional doesn't mean it has to be bad.
So I think you do need to zoom out and look at the big picture and be, appreciative, if you're an Eagles fan, of, what the team is doing, what they've done, what this is like historically. I mean, they're on track to repeat as division champs for the first time in 21 years, like, not to be taken for granted. At the same time, I think it's also fair to sit here and be like, this doesn't feel great. This doesn't feel as good as it should feel. I think there's truth to that. I don't think you have to watch the game, be like, what the heck afterwards, and then be like, well, everything is fine just because they're winning. I can't, complain at all. I think people shouldn't have to ignore what there's. Is this team passing the eye test? They're not entirely. No.
Well, offensively.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the team passes the eye test.
I don't know. The offense does not, to me.
Well, well, one thing, and I brought up, and I want to hear your thought. At some point, I've already gotten to that point, but I think more people need to get to the point that the two perceived biggest playmakers on this team, for whatever reason, and I don't know, I just brought up Saquon, but also AJ, might be injury, might be banged up. For whatever reason, they're not performing the way they performed in the past. For AJ, for years, and for Saquon, certainly last year was going to be tough to live up to it. But as one of our commenters just said, look, he was on some pretty crappy teams with the Giants and some pretty bad offensive lines, and he was better than he is right now. When you have those two guys with those two reputations not living up to their reputations, I get everybody wants to blame the coaches. I get that part, but to me, it's players first, whether it's good or whether it's bad. And I think those two guys are not playing up to their reputations. Am I wrong?
I think less so with Saquon. I still believe he looks good to me, and it's just I don't know why, but they just cannot get it going for him. I think defenses are obviously more keyed in on him when he's in the game than they are with Tank Bigsby. Although they should start to be more keyed in, because
pay attention to Tank.
He's running really well. But those things to me explain why the offense isn't number one in the NFL, absolute juggernaut. I think that's fair. I don't think they explain why the offense looks like what it is here. I think there's room for them to look better than they are where they are right now, while also still not being, again, the best unit in the NFL by far. I think there are things that we could see the coaching staff help out with more to get more. I find it very hard to believe the coaching staff has an orange in their hands and they're squeezing all the juice they possibly can out of that orange. I still think there's a lot of juice to squeeze there.
Yeah, I think they just dumbed it down to don't turn it over. And I get it. John's right. They're 40-2. I think Nick is honestly correct to block out the noise, but you're right, BLG. It's just frustrating to watch sometimes. BLG, what'd you make of the D Gunn report earlier this week about Jalen Hurts and some of the things he had to say?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we all know Derek Gunn is well connected. You'd be remiss to think otherwise. So I don't doubt he's hearing that. And it is in line with what we have been hearing in other places with Diana Rossini talking about how multiple offensive players are frustrated. It falls in line with what Jeff McLean had said about in his podcast that he did last week on Uncovering the Birds about how, he basically informed opinion that, AJ's biggest frustration probably lies with how Jalen plays the game. So it's not coming out of nowhere. Same time, like I think it's a little bit unfair to Jalen Hurts when you look at his track record. We're talking about the reigning Super Bowl MVP here. It doesn't mean he's above criticism, but it's like you kind of have to put it in perspective. And also kind of when we talk about Jalen and him saying the offense looks like how it wants, it's going to look like what he wants to look like. At the same time, he makes the straight jacket comments after the NFC Championship game last year. It's a weird thing to parse through. I will say
conflicting comments though, hasn't he? Like the Pam Oliver, he's like, we got to stop playing to lose. But he also said last year, it's going to look how Jalen Hurts wants it to look. So it's like, all right, I got both sides here. I don't know. You know what I mean?
It's a weird thing to parse through. I will say, I think something that people kind of like didn't take the right way from what D Gunn said is D Gunn invoked the name of Carson Wentz. And what Derek Gunn, this is my opinion, I can't speak for D Gunn, but my interpretation of his comments was not saying Jalen Hurts literally is the spitting image of Carson Wentz. Like that's not, obviously Jalen's way more accomplished than Carson was. That's not what was being said. I think my interpretation again of what that comparison was made to is the fact that Carson Wentz, and when things went wrong here in Philadelphia, Carson held an outsized influence in that building. He had like way too much power than he really should have had. And it was to the detriment of the team ultimately and the detriment of the offense. And I wonder, I guess, if D Gunn is trying to get to something there where, and to me, that's not just a quarterback problem, by the way, at that point. Because the same organization is allowing the quarterback to kind of overstep and have too much power. And I get it. It's hard because they have a lot of natural power as the big money contract guy.
That would be my pushback on that. Like, what star quarterback doesn't have a lot of power?
Sure.
I mean, that to me is baked into it.
While it's winning and has created angst in the locker room, and that is something that you have to take into account.
But I think the best organizations are like ones who can like kind of reel that in a bit. I think like you look at some level, it's not perfect, but like the Patriots with Tom Brady, or to use a different sport analogy, like LeBron James on the Heat, like Pat Riley, has like that kind of credence to other organizations that might not, and they can kind of put his foot down a little bit more than certain other teams can. And by the way, those are some of the best years of LeBron's career. So I do think there is something to be said for like an ownership and a structure that can kind of put their foot down at times and try to steer the ship in what's best for the team and the organization, and not just catering to the star player at every whim.
Offensively, so because I do, Jalen's the star quarterback, he's going to have a lot of power, so I'm fine with that. That's kind of baked into it, and it could be worse. Think about Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre in Green Bay, and that kind of power. But to me, it comes down to if the Eagles really wanted to, like I think they could show up every week, spread the field, and throw for 250 yards a game, which is, I use that number because the Cowboys are about that number, and they're number one in the NFL. Like, I truly believe that. If that's all their focus was, to go out, they have enough to where if they played that style of football, even with the stupid route concepts and even everything, they could do it if they wanted to. I've seen Nick Mullins do it. I've seen Jameis Winston do it. They can do it. But it's about, trying to get to the finish line each and every week. Now, maybe they've taken it too far, but when you see that number, 583, 2 interceptions, never happened before in the history of the NFL. Have 500 pass span with only 2 interceptions. Until it stops, I don't know why Nick Sirianni would stop it. I'm trying to be as fair as possible to the guy. I don't know why he would stop it until somebody proves they can stop it. It's like a reactionary league. Like, I'm doing it. I'm not fixing something that isn't broke until it's broke.
Well, I think it could be more broken than we realize in terms of like the margin for they're shrinking the margin for error here, and in a bad way in terms of like they're creating more margin for error in that, look at all these one score games. History tells us that one score games are not predictive, like over the long term, of a team being a great team and knowing how to win. There's an element of that for sure. But you look at the Chiefs last year, amazing in all these one score games, didn't look right for a lot of the year. What happens when they get to the Super Bowl? They get their butts kicked by the Eagles, who are a dominant team. Look at the Chiefs this year, too, by the way. They're 0-5 in one-score games this year. That regression comes for you at some point. Again, Eagles 6-1 in one-score games this year. Part of that is because they've done good things. Part of that's because Jordan Davis gets lucky and blocks a field goal, and that's how you beat the Rams. That doesn't mean like the style is flawless and that you're doing everything right. Part of it is that there's truth to that, but part of it is you're getting the breaks. And at some point, the breaks might dry up, and that strategy that you're playing is going to cost you.
Bill G, what do you think of this game coming up, Cowboys game? I mean, it's interesting because they're a very good passing offense. Obviously, you played another great passing offense in the Lions, held them to under 10 points. John and I have talked about how the weather might have impacted because both offenses in that game are really shoddy. What do you think of this Cowboys game coming up?
Yeah, as bad as the Cowboys defense has been this year, I always felt like there was hope for them to get better over the course of the season from a standpoint of obviously they made the trade additions I didn't expect, but they're going to be getting DeMarvion Overshown back, Siobhan Revel, who a lot of people said could be a higher pick, had he not been hurt.
Right.
They get Malik Hooker back.
He's actually played well, too, that Revel kid.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, they have between those three guys and then the two players they added in trades between Logan Wilson and Quentin Williams, it's 5 players. It's like half of a defense, basically, that they're putting in here. So there's absolutely hope. Not even that they're going to be like the best defense in the NFL, but not like the totally pathetic unit they've been for most of the season. So I know they only played the Raiders, and look, Chip Kelly, I think that's not a great option, I think, in the year 2025. I've never been a big Geno Smith guy. That offense stinks, to be clear, but I also think it's true that the Cowboys defense could be, less of a joke now.
Yeah, well, I think they're getting better, and that's the goal. And I think Matt Eberflus is a good coordinator. I didn't like him as a head coach, but I do think he's a good defensive coordinator. So it's not surprising to me they're going to get a little bit better defensively. They still have some holes, obviously. Don't have a big-time pass rusher. They did at one point, but I digress. And that's a problem. But Quentin Williams is a really good player, so they're getting better and better. But I got to tell you, offensively, I am really impressed by Dak Prescott and George Pickens specifically. Mm-hmm. And watching George Pickens in Pittsburgh, I was kind of like, all right, he's got talent, but I was like, he's not that good. He is that good if you use him correctly. And obviously CeeDee Lamb is back, and he's playing at a high level as he typically does. I know we've been saying it, but boy, I really think people underplayed the wind aspect against Detroit and the weather aspect as a whole in Green Bay. Because remember, it's not only the Eagles' offense that's struggling. It was the worst game Jared Goff ever had. Mm-hmm. And while I want to give credit as well to Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and Moro Ojomo and Jalen Phillips because they were phenomenal, that game's in Ford Field. It's probably a little bit different.
Sure.
This game is going to be at AT&T, pristine environment, George Pickens against Adoree Jackson or CeeDee Lamb. I think Dallas is going to score some points. Are we going to learn something about the Eagles offense because we're finally going to see them have to play differently?
Well, yeah, the excuse of the weather goes out the window. I don't want to hear it at that point. I mean, maybe it's the sun at this point.
Yeah, the sun. No curtains there.
Yeah, I guess that would matter, right? Maybe for this time, this is a 4:25 game.
Yeah, maybe have a drop pass because of the sun, but you should be able. There's no weather excuses coming up this week. And Dallas is healthy offensively, unlike Detroit and Green Bay. Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you what, BLG, if this defense gives up 14 or less to this team, I'll be really freaking impressed.
Yeah. Then it's
absolutely.
Yeah. They're going to enter a new level if they do that.
That's one thing I've kind of worried about the defense too. Not that worried about them not playing well in terms of like their ceiling. I believe we obviously seen it. I believe in that. But at some point, like just the weight that you have to carry by always being the rock of the team, just simply like at some point, guys are going to get tired, or it's just not going to. Like, defense in the NFL, it's hard to do that. At some point, the offense also has to carry their weight. So, yeah, I would be very impressed if they held them to that low of a production.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, you talk about carrying their weight. I agree, but the one thing I don't understand is like I'm trying to figure out how to do that better while also toting the line of being this risk-averse team because they clearly don't want to turn it over. And again, as I pointed out earlier, it's hard to not look at what Nick has done and say, yeah, I agree. I mean, he's won 40. He's 40-2 when they win the turnover battle. Like, is somebody really going to tell him he's making bad decisions, trying to be risk-averse? But the offense is so damn tough to watch, and it feels like they're getting worse. You know, I think things are condensing on Saquon Barkley. They're condensing on the offensive line. It's becoming harder to move the ball that way. You know, it almost feels like, is there going to be a gotcha moment? But it's not coming, BLJ. Do you think this margin is too small this year?
I just think it's a false choice. I think there's things you can do differently and still win. Like, I don't think Grant Calcaterra has to be out there on the field for as much as he is.
I agree with that.
When he's terrible, and that means that you're avoiding turnovers. Like, that's not the offense has like room to be better, while you can still also play a style where you avoid turnovers. There's tweaks you can make that they're not making. So I don't think I don't look at it as like, oh, don't touch it. Everything is perfect. There's nothing to fix here. I do think there are some things that you can get better at and fix and adjust.
Let's talk adjustments. In a lot of ways, I hate that term because, you know, people misconstrue. Like I love when Vic said halftime adjustments are a bunch of whatever he said the one time. It's like, you know, Vic's got to get down to the field, by the way, and then he's got to go back up. But I digress. Adjustments you got to do throughout the game. Now, a lot of the reasons is because of the running game was so spectacular last year. I maintain there was the big adjustment in week 4, and that's what we have. That's the pivot point. Week 4 last season, the bye week, and then they shifted to what they shifted to, and that's what we're in right now. So to me, that's the critical point. So if you say week 5 to winning the Super Bowl, which they won 16 of 17 games, I believe, there weren't many adjustments. Like, they've done a lot of different things this year trying to fix things. They've gone under center. They threw out the big Fred packages. Now if they're going to keep it, it's got to be Matt Pryor. I argue they've tried more different things to fix what's going on this year than last year. Now, partially that baked into that is just success. They were so successful last year. This year, they're struggling so much, they have to do some different things. Agree with that or disagree with it? Because I think people miss that. The adjustments, maybe they haven't worked, but they're trying. I see evidence of trying.
Yeah, I mean, it's not nothing. They haven't done nothing. You pointed out, you know, some of the under center, the 6 offensive linemen. And they had some success with that, especially as they first started to do it. But then it's like, you know, teams are going to catch up, and then you have to adjust to the adjustment that they're making at that point. And I don't know if we've quite seen that yet. But yeah, it's not just that kind of stuff. Like schematics, to me, it's, you know, the personnel usage too. I mean, we're seeing all of a sudden a lot less 11 personnel. And not to say that Jahan Dotson is, you know, incredible, but he's made some good plays, and that's more than you can say.
I feel bad for Jahan Dotson, by the way.
And that's more than you can say for these backup tight ends. Like, and Kylan Granson, like, why is that target going to him there? Like, I'm not mad at Kylan Granson for not making that catch. Why is your third string tight end in a position where, like, that's going to be your big play? Like, in last week against the Packers, or Darius Cooper on that route where he slips down. Like, why can't that be AJ on that route? And I love Darius Cooper, don't get me wrong. But it's just like some of these personnel decisions, too, I just think are really not adding up to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, when it comes to personnel groupings, because it's funny. We were talking about when Nick first got here. If you talk about back to 2021, the first 5 games or whatever, all they did was throw the ball. He was trying to. He's an 11 personnel guy at his core. That's what he wants to do. But he felt at the time that it was too much on the plate of Jalen Hurts, and scaled it back and to become more run centric, and it worked, and they made the playoffs. surprisingly, and then they took off from there. Are we still here all this time later? And they can't play 11 personnel because they don't think it's the strength of the quarterback, put it bluntly.
I don't know why, but it's just, again, you traded like a 3rd-round pick for John Dotson, and he's playing what in this last game? Like not even half of the snaps.
Play. Yeah, he doesn't play.
And then he does get a chance, and he makes a great. That was an awesome catch. It was the longest play of the game they had on offense.
He's done that a couple times this year.
Yeah,
there was that 50-yard pass. Was that the Rams game? It was the longest play in that game.
I'm not saying build the offense out of him, but like I don't know, maybe use him more than ever. That's like my biggest thing. I feel like with Tank Bigsby, it's like, oh, he's playing really well. Maybe like lean into that a little bit more. It just seems like, oh no, it's like you do a couple times and then it's just done for arbitrary reasons.
I think they don't trust the quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe they should a little more. Maybe.
How do you evaluate Jalen Hurts this year, BLJ?
Uneven season. We've seen him play some of his best football. I point back to week 1 against the Cowboys. He carried the offense in that game. Offense didn't look good. He had to run on all these 3rd downs because like the offense wasn't helping him as much as he was helping the offense. Buccaneers game, first half of that game looks great. One of the best first halves of his career. Other times uneven, bad. The Giants game, first one, I thought that was his worst game of the season by far.
Minnesota, perfect passer rating.
Yeah, Minnesota, perfect passer rating. It's just it's been inconsistent. I can't sit here and tell you he's been perfect. I always say I feel like I'm the most centrist kind of person on Jalen Hurts in that I think his critics go way too far. I think his biggest proponents go way too far. I think it's not as like, oh, he has his hands tied behind his back, and these poor Jalen Hurts, these coaches just like can't help him at all, or like are doing things he just doesn't even want to do. And at the same time, I can't sit here and tell you, again, I used that orange analogy earlier, that like they're getting all the juice they possibly can out of him and helping him in every possible way they can.
It's such a weird team because, again, one thing I should have brought up, like he's been great against the blitz this year. Like that was the big issue previously. Yep. And it's like this huge improvement and then other stuff regresses. It's strange. It's tough to put your finger on. And to the point of the D Gun story, look, it's pretty. AJ and Devontae are frustrated. I mean, they are.
Yeah.
And they're frustrated because they feel when not necessarily about targets or things like that. I think everybody misconstrues that. It's about, all right, if we're going to call this stupid play and there's a small window and we're open, the ball's got to come out. I think it all boils down to that. And the ball is not coming out way too often.
Yeah, I think it's demoralizing, right? If you're a receiver and you're just running these routes over and over, I know it's easy for us to be like, AJ has to run out that route, and I agree, he does, but at some point, like, he is doing that, like, 30 times a game, and then he's just getting used to it never coming his way, even if he's open, and then he's getting frustrated. So there's a human element to that.
Yeah, and I think they're winning a lot, which obviously has to be accounted, but you can't just deny that some of those other problems on the team are starting to get bigger. They're boiling over is what it feels like to me. I mean,
I maintain that if you want to blame the coaching staff, feel free, but here's where I would blame the coaching staff. I think they have beaten this risk-averse philosophy into his head that he's too hesitant to throw the football when he needs to throw the football. Yeah, I think that's the issue.
But they've also coached it into the playbook. Like, I'm sorry, but nobody – I don't care what people think of Patullo. Nobody can tell me he doesn't know how to call a crossing route. They don't do that because it's risk-averse.
It is.
You know what I mean? The guy's been a coach in the NFL for 16 years. Not a coordinator, but a coach. I mean, seriously, do people think he's this stupid? He's not
this the same
stupid.
Thing.
He might not have a feel for the game, but he's not this stupid. They run this risk-averse offense. That's what they run. They don't draw complex routes. They don't do complex things. They don't even try and put the ball into any tight windows. You know? It's not only beaten into his head, it's beaten into Patullo's head, it's beaten into the way the entire offense runs.
Kevin Petula also doesn't just like go in a room and be like, all right, here's my offense. And Nick is like, oh, cool, nice. Right. Like, that's interesting. No, it's like Nick Sirianni's dictating this.
I know. I think they all sit in a room all week and game plan and put the plan together and do those things. I think people completely delegitimize that part of it too. But
the prep is much more important than, I mean, all the stuff that you're seeing, on the big cards, and that's all game planning during the week, and you have every situation laid out in front of you. Third and 5 or third and 7 or more, third down, scripted plays, yada yada. Everything's there. Fourth down plays, and then you just pick from the menu, and then it's about feel. And certainly somebody like Shane has a better feel than Kevin, vice versa. Shane has probably had the best feel, but boy, play calling's overrated. I mean, that's about preparation and being ready for the spot. And so many times I say it all the time. I had this discussion with Doug Peterson back in the day. It's like, sometimes you got the best play call ever dialed up and you caught him and the left guard misses a block. Nobody ever knows. And vice versa. Sometimes you're caught, defense has you, and somebody just makes a play and they bail your ass out. Can work both ways. Mm-hmm. But that's every NFL team, every NFL city. But we're talking about a team that's number 1 in the NFC. And I got to tell you, BLG, if they get by this game, Chicago ain't winning here. They're not ready. They're the Commanders of this year. That's how I look at that team. The Chargers are so banged up. The Raiders, you just talked about, are brutal. Mm-hmm. Commanders have tapped out. Buffalo, I don't even know if they're going to have to play. They probably will. But Josh Allen has got to be Superman.
And also probably doesn't matter. Like, it's an AFC game. If you lose, it's not the biggest deal.
We could end up 15-2 with one of the worst offenses in pro football. What an amazing accomplishment, man.
I don't know who's stopping this team. Literally, the betting markets now have them as the Super Bowl favorite, most of them, to win the Super Bowl, not only get there.
Yep.
I sit there and I look at it and I go, and I'm the same way. I'm like, nobody's better than this team. But I can't find a better team.
No, me neither. The Rams are probably playing better.
Yeah. I would still put the Rams ahead of them. It's close though, and I know the Eagles beat them, but they very much came close to losing that game. But hey, if you get the 1 seed, you're playing the Rams in Philly. Obviously, the Eagles are going to be favored in that game.
Sean McVay can't beat Nick Sirianni
or Vic Fangio,
or Vic Fangio.
Yeah, but that you can't just take that and hold that forever. Remember, people said that about the Bucs on us for a while, until it wasn't.
Eventually, so he has not lost to McVay. He has not lost to LaFleur. He has not lost to O'Connell. That McVay tree. Eventually, they're going to lose a game, and it's about talent. And I get it, but I do think there's a point when it gets to the point where it is, and it's 11 straight games or whatever. There is something to being in somebody's head. Like, I heard the Rams, and what I liked about it after that game was Kyron Williams. I don't know if you remembered, but he was like,
I do remember. Yep.
I thought he had a good philosophy. He's like, we outplayed this team. We beat ourselves.
He's right.
Essentially. And he was right. But I don't know if everybody has that Kyron Williams. I think other people have it in their head. Like, what the hell do we have to do to beat this team?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something to that. But I would agree that the Rams look like a more well-rounded team.
Mm-hmm.
But until they beat them, man.
Sure.
Yeah, fair enough.
What does it say? All right, I'll end it there. At Brandon Goutin, make sure you follow BLG on the X platform. BleedingGreenNation.com, the best Eagles website out there for your daily Eagles news. Check it out. Do a great job over there. When it comes to this defense and what Vic has done, is it just as simple as Jalen Phillips? I compare it to a baseball rotation. Mm-hmm. Is it just as simple as you got the ace and everything falls into place? Now you got a number 2 who was trying to be a number 1. Everything just falls into place. Is it that simple that they finally got that piece and they're going to take off?
I think it's a big part of it. I think N'Kobe's part of that too. Getting him back as well is huge. And it's been very apparent that he should be playing a lot because As much as Jahad Campbell is probably the future, I mean, Nakobe Dean is the now, and it's impossible to take him off the field. So I think between Nakobe and what he can do, not only just playing off-ball linebacker, like we traditionally think, but being valuable as a pass rusher. He's what, tied for I think 4th on the team in sacks now. Just is the 2 in the past couple of games here, and those are like impact kind of pass rushes where strip sack against Jordan Love, and then a huge sack there against Jared Goff. He almost lost control of the ball there. So getting Nakobe back is huge. Jalen Phillips has been awesome to be able to just rely on him as your top pass rusher in terms of just like his snap counts instantly, and how, like you said, John, that kind of sets everyone else into a more, I think, comfortable role. Nolan Smith doesn't have to be, as he's coming back from injury, like the top guy right now. Jalen Hunt, doesn't have to be.
He's really picked it up, and
Jalen Hunt. I think there's 4 players in the NFL. I think Jalen is tied for 5th among edge rushers, I should say, in quarterback hits this season. Like he had 3 in this past game.
Yeah, it's amazing what Vic has done with that defense. It really is.
I mean, BLJ, they're our hope, right? I mean, we need. That's it. I said it, BLJ. I was enlightened on Monday morning. I no longer have any expectation for the offense. We're just going to suck on offense. This defense, though, man, they're an awesome defense, and they could help us run the table.
It's true, and I think they're not getting enough credit just because of the frustrations with the offense, and now we're spending time obviously for most of the show focusing on that. So it's kind of a shame, but they absolutely do deserve the credit. I just will say, to make one last point about the offense, it's just funny when you talk about the defense and how great it is, and Vic Fangio and how great it is, and how it's just you cannot say the same thing for the offense. It just feels like kind of like the opposite.
No,
is
true. You can't.
There's a lot more talent on the offensive side.
I don't know if there is, though. I don't know if there is.
There's a lot more financial investment. That's
there's
for sure.
Yes,
inarguable.
Yes. Because I think Quinyon Mitchell's an All-Pro.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah,
End of sentence. Cooper DeJean's the best slot corner in football. Jalen Carter's Jalen Carter from.
Did they both get All-Pro this year?
Yeah, I mean they could, because now
they pick a slot corner for All-Pro?
Do. Yeah, we do. AP voters.
Can you imagine if both of our last year's top 2 picks got All-Pro their second year? That would be incredible.
You mentioned Jalen Carter in there real quick. Like, I think he looks healthy now. Like, coming back from the bye, I think it's also underrated massive development for this team. Like, getting full version Jalen Carter back is huge.
Moro Joma. I got to give Zander credit on this one. That guy's been lights out.
Oh, yeah.
Jordan Davis, career year.
Huge.
How you pay? They're going to have to shed some offensive talent, guys. To your point about the financial investment, they got to pay some of these guys on defense.
But to the point, I don't know if they're more talented. They're more.
They should be.
The reputations are more talented, but you might have descending players versus ascending. But this league moves quickly, man.
Yep,
it moves quickly.
John, to your credit, you've been a little bit ahead of that, which is coming a little more true each week. BLG, thank you, man. Make sure you guys follow him at Brandon Goutin. Go to bleedinggreennation.com. BLG, thank you, my man.
Thanks,
See you guys.
Later, dude. There's BLG joining us right here on Birds 365. Great stuff there from Brandon Lee Goutin. A lot of good comments we got to get through real quick. Super chats. John, good conversation today. Look, I get it. I know people don't like to have these conversations, but it's a complex team to talk about in a sense of that they win so much. You have to gauge that with a performance offensively that is underwhelming, I think, to say the least. Great defensive performance. Small margin for error, but unprecedented levels of winning it. There's a lot of context that goes into this team, John. Makes our job easy. Gets us some hate, but it makes our job easy from that perspective.
Well, it's not easy to explain it at times. But,
no, it's not.
But I'm coming more. I'm glad BLG brought that up because, financially and reputation wise, the offense is more talented. I'm at the point where that has ceased to be the truth. That's the perception. It's not the reality. This defense is better. And it was last year, but it was a different group as well. And they lost a bunch of guys, but they've magically been able to replace them. In a lot of ways, Jalen Phillips is better than Josh Sweat. So you get him late in the process.
Yeah.
And to Mike's point earlier about, are these guys really going to be, well, Zach Bond had a historic season, but he's still playing at a top 10 level for a linebacker. But he's like the Saquon of the defense, tough to live up to that year he had last year. But he's still really at a high level, whereas Saquon has dropped off if you want to make those two comparisons. Quignon's gotten better. Cooper's gotten better. Alex has gotten better, and he's getting better. Morrow's gotten better and is getting better. I mean, it's not only Vic, and it's a talented group. And here's what I'll say, because I always say players first. Vic has been around for a long time, and he's been the best defensive coordinator in the NFL for about 15 years, or at least from a reputation standpoint, a very long time. He's only got one Super Bowl. You can't just win as a coach without players. That was his first Super Bowl last year. In his long and storied career where everybody copies the guy. Everybody knows what he is as a coach. Mm-hmm. You don't win. He's not on the field. You got to have players. And he's got a shitload of players. And I think people say, oh, it's Vic coaching these guys. No, these guys are fucking good.
Yeah. No doubt. It's good context. John's getting some super chats here. Kimberly says BG back makes a whole defense better mindset-wise.
Well, I agree mindset-wise. I mean, he's a great dude. Okay, I mean, my favorite Eagle ever.
I thought he made some plays versus the Lions. I mean, he was in there.
Yeah, I mean, he's not playing. He's playing like 8-10 snaps a game.
Yeah, which I think is what you need. Yeah, which is all you want. I don't think you need more than that.
But certainly, he brings a lot of juice to the locker room and in the building and all that kind of stuff. And maybe he'll start to play more, but right now he's not playing that much. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I think her point about mindset wise might be true. Maybe he's in there to help some of that locker room tension, which does seem to exist, whether people want to admit it or not. Pumper says teams are sitting on everything on the secondary because our QB has a baby arm. He practically lobs every pass, including screens. Noodle for sure.
Come on, Pumper. It's one of the best deep throwers in football. That's one of his strengths. Arm strength is not a problem with Jalen Hurts. He can make all the throws. That's not the problem. Problem is processing quickly and throwing the ball on time. That's the problem. Now, does he have an Aaron Rodgers arm? Nobody has an Aaron Rodgers. He's 40 whatever, and he's still throwing the ball. So he's the only one who can throw the ball 70 yards on a Hail Mary. But so no. But it's like comparing somebody to Nolan Ryan. Can he make all the throws as an NFL quarterback? Easily. One of the best deep ball throwers in the NFL. Before last week, I don't know, because I haven't gotten the game notes yet. I have them, but I don't have the hard copy. He coming into last week, he had the most over 20-yard completions in the NFL. So, come on.
Here is Terrence. John, I've gotten this comment a lot, even people reaching out saying, get J-Mass to ask about this. I'm like, I don't tell John what to ask, right? That's up to John. But, people do want to know about this. Since the true media era, they're running more hitch routes than any team recorded since 2012. Terrence says, I know John doesn't believe in scheming people open. Every Sunday, I see their star receivers get put in good positions to be open while we do hitches.
First of all, you said I think you guys overrate scheming players open. It's not I don't believe in scheming players open. I think you guys overrate it.
Isn't there some offenses though where it's like not like Ben Johnson's and kind of McVay's? They kind of rely on that, don't they?
Well, they play a different style of offense.
Yeah, I mean, for those styles of offenses, though, is what I think people compare it to, and then they wonder why ours doesn't look like that. And I'm like, we don't play that style of offense.
Well, yeah, exactly.
We don't have a time and quarter, but you know what I mean? That's just not Jalen's game. More off schedule, different styles.
Correct. So,
what do you think about the hitch routes? Because that's something that's now popping up.
Typically, AJ has dominated on those things and slant right. Then this year he's not. So that's my point of for whatever reason, and maybe it's injury related. Hopefully it's injury related, although he says it's not. He is not winning on things he typically wins on. Usually, when you get press coverage against A.J. Brown, the Eagles would be giddy, and he's not performing as well as he has in the past. With Devontae had a bad game, but he's had a good season overall. Look, I say it. How many times have I said to you, Zander? It's a very conservative, risk-averse offense. I'm operating with the understanding it's a very conservative, risk-averse offense. I'm not even saying that's what it should be. I'm saying that's what it is. So yes, they're not going to be Ben Johnson. They're not going to be Sean McVay. On the other hand, why the fuck can't Sean McVay beat the dumbest coaches in the world? Like, you know, so many of these fans say the same thing. This guy's better. This guy's better. This guy's better. And then it comes down to, well, they have better talent. Well, to a certain degree, they certainly have better talent than most teams, certainly a top 5 roster in the NFL. And that's what you lean on. You lean on your talent. You know, it's when you're worse where you have to scheme people open.
Right.
And you have to say, this guy can't get open, so I have to help him get open. And some coaches are better at that than others. And I'm not saying it's not important. I'm saying you guys overrate it.
Yeah. And if you don't want to listen to John, go listen to all the greatest coaches in the history who talk about players over plays. That's every single great coach talks about that. Sammy Livingston says, how can Jalen Hurts get better at anticipatory throws? He used to work with Brady's QB guru in the offseason, right?
Well, he still goes out. He works with Tom House and Adam Dado, which he does for a very short period of time. I don't know who Tom was working with, to be honest, but a lot of guys go to that quarterback sort of group, but it's not, you know, to me, those guys, because Carson did it one year and he got better significantly. That to me is about mechanics more than anything else. Those guys really help with mechanics.
Yeah, right. And which Jalen has, I think, improved greatly at with mechanically, in my opinion. Maybe not, but it looks like.
Oh no, yeah, he's definitely gotten significantly better, and that was part of Carson's problem. He went, and then the pandemic started, and then he got better mechanically. Then the pandemic, and he didn't go. Well, he couldn't go. Blah blah blah, and that really hurt him. And he started to slide again mechanically. You got to stay on top of that stuff, and Jalen is always going to work at that, so I wouldn't be concerned. The anticipatory stuff, man, that's like that to me is that's most young because that's how they grow up. That's right. The new modern era of football. You don't have prep time. You don't have practice time. It's collectively bargained out. So the coaches dumb it down because they have to, because they don't have time to teach them the more complicated concepts. It's rare to see a quarterback that consistently can throw receivers open. In other words, the ball coming out before the receiver even makes his break, that was a staple of every NFL offense in the 80s. Now, a handful of guys can do that on a consistent basis. Guys like Stafford, Rodgers, and it's generally all the older guys.
Yeah. Ryan says the organization must hate Hard Knocks. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Invictus says the Eagles are the Floyd Mayweather of football. Great defense, frustrating to watch offensively, but they don't lose.
That's true. That's good comp. Floyd, greatest. I mentioned that. We were talking about Vegas.
We're more like Shakur Stevenson is what somebody told me than Floyd Mayweather, but whatever.
I haven't paid attention to, but I know Floyd.
Shakur is known for great defensive boxing with zero ability to knock anybody out.
Well, that's kind of Floyd. I mean,
yeah, it's Floyd too.
Floyd's the greatest defensive fighter of all time. But yeah, he wasn't exactly powerful, and people like the power guys.
Yeah, and Brandon says must win for Cowboys, and they will prevail. Outside of Week 1, the Cowboys have beat us during Dak era when he is healthy. True.
Yeah, I mean the Eagles have struggled a lot down there. Not last year, but a lot, and difficult. It's been a difficult place to play, so wouldn't surprise me if they lose this game. But I also don't trust the Cowboys yet, defensively, to say the least. They are getting better, as BLG mentioned. Guys getting healthier. Overshawn's a good player. Rebel's a good, talented player. We'll see if he's good. The safeties are back. They'd been out. Williams, Quinnen Williams is now part of the really good defensive tackle. Kenny Clark, really good defensive tackle. But you're talking about maybe going from 31 or 32 in the league to 20 or something. They're getting a little bit better. For the Cowboys to win the game, they're going to have to score. And that's why it's going to be fun, because we're just talking about this defense. Look, they had a 12th defender against the Lions and the Packers. They're not going to have that. So we're going to see. And if they hold the Cowboys to 14 points, I will be the first one saying that's the best defense in football. I don't care what.
We got to rattle through these, man. We're way over time. I didn't realize. Corporate says,
"Oh shit, yeah."
Argument for Hurts is ball security. What makes you think the Tan Man can't emulate? Kid has so much skill, it's oozing. Plus, Hurts can't run anymore.
Because nobody in the history of football has ever done it before. So no, I don't think the next guy's going to do it.
Blaze says 28 other teams that would drool having the talent we have on offense, and we can't do fuck all with it.
Yeah, well, I think it's time to reevaluate everybody's assessment of the talent.
Kokorski says all this offense got to do is score 24 points. They do that. They won't lose another game.
Maybe. I'm going to take the over that at one point they'll give up more than 24 points.
Me too. Terrence says, I love AJ, but being 135th in separation is bad. I know you got to throw receivers open, but wide receiver got to help the quarterback sometimes. If he's not injured and he been complaining is crazy.
Well, if he's not injured, I think it's worse than if he is injured, because if he is injured, he can get healthy, but he's not playing at the same level he had typically played at previously.
Yeah. Terrence, thank you, man. Last one from Pumper. Locker drama. The only reports I see the last 3 years involved King Tush Push. The guy's leadership has been overrated and overstated. Industry plant. Pumper obviously doesn't have Jalen Hurts. Never has.
Yeah. Well, Pumper, yeah. Again, very unique player. A lot of good to that, some bad. And people are conditioned to believe you have to play a certain way to play quarterback, and he has proven otherwise.
No doubt.
But it's not necessarily pretty. I'll leave it there. Not necessarily pretty.
Yeah. What's on the agenda real quick? Everything kind of back today, Wednesday, so they're back in the building.
Yeah.
It's a normal Sunday game schedule.
Yeah. Nick talks early 12. It's noonish. I got to get out of here. Practice 3:05-ish, locker room 4:45.
So another long one. John, somebody pointed out to me, 4 new tires in the car, you're risk averse. I
am risk averse. Well, actually, I was not risk averse, which is why I needed for it, because I went way over what I should have went. So I was not risk averse, and now I guess I am risk averse.
And now you've paid the price. So now you got it, though. All right, John, great stuff, man. Appreciate you doing it. Sorry for going way over time. I know you got to get down to the NovaCare complex. We appreciate you as always, John. Always bringing really great context to the conversation around this team. And it's appreciated by the great people of Birds 365. Thank you, John.
All right, see you guys.
All right, thanks, J-Mac. There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen, joining us here on Birds 365. Great show this morning. A lot of good context, a lot of good conversation. Let's talk about it all here on Zander Time. I want to get into some of it. I want to have everybody kind of weigh in, because I don't think this is as black and white sometimes as it's made out to be. I think there's a lot of different nuance. I would encourage everybody to, look at some of the nuance. I'm not trying to, like blame anybody over the top here, but I think there is conversation here. It's like, we're winning at this clip. Is the margin for error too small? Even for people who are happy with the wins, even for, a guy like Dabney in the chat. I don't know if you're still in here. How do you gauge where the risk averse nature has brought us? You know what I mean? Like where is the mindset of people? Because the offense is worse than it was last year from a sense of you don't have that running game crutch, but you got this great winning record that's so hard to deny and so hard to look past. It's like, well, how do we gauge it? And I know some people always go to the extremes, both ways, both ways. But I don't think we have to live in the extremes. I really don't. I think there's proper nuance. I think it's fair to say that Nick Sirianni as a head coach has made correct decisions. As I pointed out, Morty in the chat yesterday was telling me, Zander, if you made 95% decisions for your business that won, you wouldn't change, and I think that's correct. So as a head coach, how can we blame Nick for being risk averse? They're 40-2 when they win the turnover battle. Like, think about that, guys. They're 40-2 when they win the turnover battle. Now, some people will say, why don't we throw the ball to the middle of the field? Why don't we push the ball more? Why don't we pass the ball more? I get it. I say the same shit because I'd love the offense to look better. But how can we blame Nick for being risk averse? And then the problem or the question becomes, why are they running this style of offense? Is it simply because they're winning? Is it because they don't have full trust in their quarterback to run the ball a different way or to play the game a different way? Is it because Kevin Patullo is a bobo and sucks? I don't know. I think there's a lot of nuance there. I think there's a lot of honest conversations that people can have that tries to get to the point. The one thing I think that people go too far with is like Waddington. I'm gonna call you out. I love you, Waddington, but there's just something you said earlier that was like, I don't get where you're coming from. And I know you've been mad at me because I've been calling you out this week, but I'm not trying to come at you personally. I'm more trying to come at a perception. Like I saw you say, Jeff McClain said that D Gunn's report was fake news. And it's like the same reason that you don't think that you don't think Derek Gunn is right is the same reason that you believe Jeff McClain. Jeff McClain says, I got sources. And you believe Jeff McClain. But do you believe Jeff McClain because he's saying what you want to hear as opposed to Derek Gunn, who also has great connections and is saying something you don't want to hear? Like, that's where I'm like, come on. You know what I mean? Like, I can't just believe Jeff McClain because he said what I want to hear. Doesn't mean Derek Gunn is wrong because he's saying what you don't want to hear. To me, that's preconceived. That is just believing what you want to believe because it fits your narrative. I get it. We have a propensity to do that as fans. But I'm not just going to dispute what Derek Gunn is saying because it's not what I want to hear. But I get it. I get it. Sig Lord says a lot of people are believing D Gunn because he has a good reputation. Well, I'll say this, Sig Lord. I don't happen to be the biggest fan of Derek Gunn personally. I've worked with him personally for many years. I'll leave that to the side. Derek Gunn is very well connected, Sig Lord. I've seen it with my own two eyes. I've experienced it. I've worked with it. I'm telling you right now, my friend, he's not making shit up. I would bash Derek Gunn if I thought the opportunity was there. I'm telling you, dude, D Gunn knows people inside that organization, a lot more people than people are giving him credit for. All right. I'm telling you. It doesn't mean you got to believe it. Whatever. You can think what you want to think. All I'm telling you is my personal experience. I have seen him with connections that most people do not have. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Again, believe who you want to believe. Dank says McClain was overblown. Dank believes McClain over D Gunn. I'm just telling you. D Gunn knows a lot of fucking people, and he's not a clickbait guy. He doesn't give a shit. I don't think you can just go in and say like, hey, D Gunn is blatantly wrong because he said something I don't want to hear is my only point. Here's Waddington. Why? I really wasn't trying to come at you, Waddington. I hope you didn't take it that way, but it is what it is. He says, fair point. Jeff McClain is saying it himself, putting his name and face on it. I just don't like the anonymous source. Yeah, but Waddington, dude, like there's nobody in football that reports and just says, this is my source. Like that doesn't happen. I know fans say that all the time. My thing is put a name to it. Nobody does that, dude. That's like nobody does that in any level of reporting. In any realm, sports, politics, world news, it doesn't matter what it is. Nobody does that. You don't put a name on your source. You don't do that because that's outing your source. Then they're not your source anymore. You don't do that, People, and that's true too. People want to stay anonymous. You're not doing that. Reporting 101, right? You got to own up to be grown up. Ray, I don't even know what you mean. Island says, that's not true, Zay. They put a name on the Wentz situation. No, they did not. Not until after he was gone. Island Ultra, I will remind you really quickly. Joe Santoliquito got death threats from this very fan base for a year because he reported something that Carson Wentz was a locker room problem. He got death threats for a year. 5 years removed, Island Ultra, everyone says, oh, Wentz was an airhead. Wentz was an idiot. Wentz was a locker room cancer. Joe Santoliquito got death threats for reporting on Carson Wentz. That's not to say every situation is the same. I'm just pointing out to you that sometimes people believe what they want to believe. All right? That's all. Santoliquito was getting death threats until everybody said, oh, look, thank God you reported it. Look how right you were. I've had Joe on this show many times. He'll tell you about it. He wrote the piece on Bleeding Green Nation, I'm pretty sure. Here's Curtis. Curtis says, Xander, what you are saying is true, but I'm pretty sure this is the worst total offense we have had in this era. We are really testing the limits of the fly. Curtis, I agree with you. Curtis, you're not, believe me. Haven't you seen people get mad at me for saying the same shit about the offense? And again, I have to look at myself and I'm like, it is hard to deny how much we're winning. Now, if you want to talk about the offense and why it's so bad, that's a different conversation. And I think it's fair to talk about those things. I don't think it's unfair. I don't think it makes you a hater. I don't think it makes you a bad fan. I don't think it makes you any of those things. I think it's completely fair to talk about. But at the end of the day, it is hard to look past the level in which they're winning. You know, it's hard to look past that. That's all. Doesn't mean I'm not frustrated with the offense. Doesn't mean that I don't look at the problems and just deny them. I try and not live in a world where I deny problems or deny things I see with my own eyes. But I also can't deny what I see with my own eyes, like 40 wins and 2 losses when they win the turnover battle. Is there any question, Curtis, why they play risk-averse? Is there any question why they don't push the ball into the teeth of the defense? Is there any question why they don't throw the ball over the middle of the field? Is there any question why we don't air it out? Is there any question, really? If you protect the ball for this team, they win. That's what the evidence shows. And until it doesn't show that, we can't just remove that context. Again, I'm somebody that likes to bring in all context. I'm somebody that likes to say, I don't think Jalen Hurts is having his best year. I don't think Jalen Hurts does things that well. I think Jalen Hurts at times is a frustrating quarterback. But if you're going to include that context, we got to include the other context too. We can't just remove that shit. Slager, I agree. And this is where I think that margin is running way closer than it should be. All right. Here's Pump. I got a couple super chats I'll get to. I appreciate everybody for being here, man. Hit that like button. All right. Look, I think it's just good conversation, honestly, on this team. I'm not trying to have a gotcha on anybody. I'm really not. I'm just trying to talk about the context, see where people land, see what people's thought process is. If somebody wants to tell me I'm wrong about something, please do it in the chat. I'll listen to it, man. I will listen to it. Pumper says, that's why JAKIB is Brian Pumper's hub for Eagles news. You don't sugarcoat shit, unlike some of these knee pad warriors like Queen Brunson. 100% facts. Thank you, Pumper. I never want to sugarcoat shit. If that means that we alienate some fans because they want to hear glaze, so be it. I refuse to operate. I refuse to build a business where every day I have to come and lie. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to speak my mind. If somebody wants to tell me I'm wrong, I will gladly listen to it. I'll gladly hear it. I will defend my stance, or I will admit I'm proven wrong, as I've done since I've been a talk show host here. Okay? You know, that's much rather, that is how I prefer to do this work. Be honest. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm not going to come up here and lie to people every day. I can't do that. Taryn says, even if these reports are true, who is leaking this? The world-class organization leaking stuff to the media about our QB, we the Dolphins. Well, Terrence, I actually think you bring up a deeper problem. That even people who say 40-2 cannot look past. All right? Hear me out here. Hear me out. Eagles are 40-2, yes. Eagles are winning, yes. This is a human game. This is not Madden. This is not a video game. These are grown men. These are human beings with lives, with goals, with motivations, with mentalities, with personalities, with egos, with all these different things that every human being has. The way they're winning has created exactly what you're talking about, Terrence. And to act like none of that matters, I think is a little bit naive as well. You know, Morty's been in the chat. Morty's had a lot of good comments. They win, they win, they win, they win. Agreed. Why are people reporting this? Because the way they play is pissing people off. You can't just deny that some of those things happen. You know, it is a variable. It is something to manage. It is something to say, hey, I agree. Let's be risk averse because it's work. But like, how do we make it so we don't blow ourselves up? Every great dynasty has ended from within, not outside. It's within. So managing that is a part of coaching. It's a part of being a team. It's a part of having great players. You have to manage those personnel. You can't just act like they don't exist or they don't matter because we won. That's where I think people are wrong about this. And you bring it up, Terrence. How are we 40-2? How are we coming off a Super Bowl win? How are we 8-2 at the top of the NFC and we got people reporting shit or leaking shit? Because there are people, all right? There are people who are upset. There are personalities that have to be managed. There are things. Now, we might differ on how we believe you got to manage those personalities. Some people will say, get them the fuck out of the building. Trade A.J. Brown. Trade these people who are mad. We're winning. I saw Ron Jaworski say that. Well, good point by Ron. It's a fair point by Ron. There's other people who will say, it's obvious why they're pissed off. This is one of the ugliest offenses in football. I get it. My only point is personalities have to be managed properly. If you don't think they do, you haven't followed sports enough. Because in every dynasty, in every sports team, in every sport, doesn't matter what it is you're talking about, managing the human beings that play the game is a part of it. You see Lord Brunson took a shot at Sills. I did see that. That's all right. Lord Brunson likes Jalen Hurts. Sills doesn't. They're going to disagree. It is what it is. I don't need people to agree with every take that's put out. I don't agree with every take that's put out by JAKIB. It is what it is. I got different personalities on the channel. Everybody has a different opinion and a different way of viewing things. We share out the opinions of our personalities. If somebody who is an Eagles fan doesn't like that, that's okay. I like being the villain. And because if you go and read across like Eagles Twitter, a lot of Eagles fans hate JAKIB Sports, hate us. So much so where they completely shit on us on social media, which is fine. I don't care. I'd much rather build my business, go slow and steady, bring to the right people to our audience, bring the right fans to our audience, and talk to people honestly. I'm not the fanboy type. It's just not the type I am. I'm not the fanboy type for any team I've ever rooted for in my life. I'm not the fanboy type that's ever been that personality ever in my life. So it is what it is. Reddit hates JAKIB. They do. They hate Cilio more than JAKIB. They hate JAKIB too. Don't you get it twisted, Dank. I don't hate JAKIB. I'm just done with the debates and the takes and John thinking he knows everything. That's wrong. John has a different perspective than you, Alfredo. If you can't handle it, that's fine. Or you don't want to hear it, that's fine. Lord Brunson is making it about race. You know, that I'm not going to go down this road, but this is an entire can of worms that I think it really sucks because I'm a white guy. And again, I'm not about to play victim. I'm not a fucking victim. I'm a victor. I take my circumstances in life and I try and get the most out of them. I'm not going to apologize. I'm not going to cry about it. Ready? But this is what's challenging. Being called a racist is a derogatory, bad thing to have associated with your name. The Eagles have a black quarterback. I'm a white guy. If I comment on Jalen as a black quarterback and say anything negative, the easy thing that people do is say, he's a racist. You understand how that complicates how you can be a talk show host or how you can analyze the game properly. Now, I don't buy into it. I say what's on my mind. People can think what they want to think. But I'm just showing you how the way that people throw this shit around is not, it's bullshit. It's bullshit. It really this part of it really bothers me, but whatever. I mean, people are gonna do that. People are gonna do that. It's a part of it. From a black man, Jalen stinks. Yeah, underdog. If I say the same shit, and again, I'm not making that take. I'm just saying, people use that. And for anybody who says this, which Ray, that's more my perspective. I don't view human beings in this light. I never have. I never will. I didn't grow up that way. I grew up, with a father who delivered coats to the homeless since I was a toddler, and I did it with them down in the streets of North Philadelphia. I've been to homeless shelters. I've been to veteran shelters. I don't see race that way. I look at the content of character, and I know people will say that's a cop-out. I've done that way my whole life. I will continue to live my life that way. I do not view race in this way. But to say it's irrelevant is wrong because people do say that shit. And then those narratives do permeate. That's what happens, Ray. I don't want the public perception of me, man to man, to be that I'm a racist because I criticized the black quarterback of the Eagles. But people use that, dude. People want to be right. People want to prove themselves right. Sometimes the way they do it is by discrediting the other person they disagree with. It's a part of it. Unfortunately, but it's a part of it. Here's Blaze. What's up, Blaze? Enough with he only has 1 inch shit. He doesn't throw unless it's wide open. Of course you're not going to throw inch. 0 tight window throws. We would have 2 to 3 wins if it wasn't for our D this year. Well, Blaze, I do think you bring up a good point of when you are risk averse, when you don't try and push the ball into tight windows, you're going to have less turnovers. I think that's a very fair, honest point, all right, about Jalen Hurts. But there's a lot of throws now, dude. And that's why I don't think John would sugarcoat that. John has watched more football than I have. John knows more about football than I do. He says, Zander, this doesn't happen. 500 plus throws and 2 picks. It's never happened. Now, all right, is some of it aided by putting the ball in the tight windows less? Absolutely it is. But it's getting to a level where Hurts deserves some credit for it. He does. He deserves some credit for it. Malcolm X would have told the Jalenites, you've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led out of bounds. That's funny. That's funny. Here's Sky Walk. What's up, Sky? I appreciate you, my man. Just want the Eagles to do well. Hope they can get it together as a team because individuals don't win championships. Well, they are. Sky, I think they are together as a team, man. I think it's actually the opposite. I think they're together as a team. I think what the issue is right now is that a lot of individuals are upset with the way they're doing it. And I understand why, because you can't just take out that human element of the game. You can't just take out that human element of the game. But Hurts has 1 pick. It's a bigger sample size than just this year, Brandon. He's 1 pick this year. He's got 2 picks in the last 500 plus passing attempts or whatever it is. It goes back to last year, Brandon. It's not just a this year's stat. Here's Joshua Jackson. Joshua, appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. He says, Smith's pacing a career year. Goddard leads tight ends in touchdowns. And despite a brutal schedule, the Eagles are 8-2. Hurts has the only 158.3 game, and even in his bad games, he protects the ball and wins. I'm just saying. Fair. Josh, you think the passing game's been good this year? You know? I don't know. I think what you're saying is fair and maybe a part of the reason that they are 8-2. But statistically, we are low in every category. Yeah, I know you can point at the 158.3 game, but that doesn't just fix the, fix the what the perceived problems of the offense are, Here's HK Pizzle. What's up, HKP? What does skin color have to do with letting the ball go on time and hitting open receivers? Stop the glaze. It has nothing to do with it, HKP. But it's an easy thing that people go to try and delegitimize someone who speaks about things that they don't want to speak about or they don't agree with. I always say to people, if you don't agree with somebody, then dispute what they said, not who they are. But people do that, dude. It's just part of it. Look, it's a part of discourse in this world. It is. Look at everything. No matter what you're talking about, man. Doesn't matter what you're talking about. It is a factor. And some people won't say what's on their mind because of it as a factor. I don't happen to be one of those people, but you'd be wrong. I'd be lying to you if I said I don't think about it. I don't want people out there fucking saying I'm a racist because I don't like the way Jalen Hurts played. That sucks. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that reputation. And then there's stunads out there who do read that and believe that. They don't listen to what you say. They don't know who you are. They just spew that narrative. It's a part of it. That's all. They're a part of it. It's a part of it. It's a part of the thing. The 3-and-outs directly impact the defense. See, that's the only stat I truly want to improve. Brandon, I actually agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%. Where, that's something that is. It feels like it could catch you. And we've been so good defensively. Like it does feel like, even as good as we've been and as confident as I am in them, like, can you just keep up this pace? Like it. You know what I mean? Like John always talks about when you have these great games or these perfect games, 158.3, or you have a number one defense like you did last year, or you have a historic running game. Like you're never going to reach that level every time. It's stupid to expect that. That's kind of how I feel about the defense. Like, should we expect this defense to literally be this good every week? No, they weren't this good early in the year, and we did get wins. Jalen did do things early in the year. I mean, look, when we were 4-0, I thought Jalen was maybe the number one reason we were 4-0. He made a lot of plays with his legs early in the year. That Cowboy game we won in week 1, I thought Jalen was the reason that we won. So the narratives will always change as the season rolls on and as you get new information and as you get a larger sample size of what's going on and what you're seeing on the field. But I don't know. It's complex. Dude, this is a complex team. It really is. Football is a complex game as is. This is a complex team, in the way they play and the way we win. Underdog, I completely agree with you. He says a racist is a horrible insult to levy against a man for no reason. I think it's a suspendable offense. That's low AF. Yeah, well, it happens a lot, dude. It happens a lot. But it is, again, I'm not playing victim. Please, don't feel bad for me. That's not what I'm asking for. I don't give a fuck. I'm just saying it's a part of the way people, speak and talk and converse and give their opinions, especially for people on the air, especially for a dude like me who's white, who covers a team that's 78% black dudes. You know what I mean? Like, how am I supposed to, if that's just going to be hurled at me, how the fuck am I supposed to be honest? I don't give a fuck what color somebody is. I truly don't. You can maybe think I'm blowing smoke out your ass. I'm not. I don't give a fuck. what color somebody is. I get it. Doesn't mean it doesn't matter, but it has nothing to do with the way I analyze the game. Nothing. Or the way I do my talk show. Nothing. Blaze says, Z, scared to pass with how good this D is criminal. Yeah, I mean, I agree, but it's hard to, again, it is hard to dismiss the level of winning, Blaze. How do you dismiss the level of winning? There's not really a way to dismiss it. The winning is the winning. Curtis says, can we stop acting like being a horrible offense while not throwing ints is impressive? Low ints are only impressive if you're moving the football. Yeah, but I think there's like a pendulum, and the pendulum has swung when you reach this level, Curtis. Like, I would agree if you're only looking at the last 8 games or the last 5 games or whatever our winning streak is since our 2 losses, 2 wins or whatever the fuck it is, 4 wins, whatever it is. But the sample size is now big enough that the pendulum has swung, and that's what John was trying to say. It's one thing to say, okay, smaller sample size. Now it's like spanning across 2 seasons with the level of wins that we've had, with the amount of turnovers that we haven't had. It's impressive. Again, I get it. Here's 3 Rock. What's up, man? Thank you for being here from X. I think the issue is, yes, the wins are there, but is this enough to get us back to the Super Bowl? That's the $1 million question, my man. That's the $1 million question. Many rightly will point to this, as M. Reyes points out, sample size is 40-2. Many will point to that. Others will point to, we're skating by the seat of our pants or by the skin of our teeth, you know? So, you know, it is what it is. You know, I don't know. It's a tough thing to gauge at this point in time. It's a tough thing to gauge at this point in time. Fredo, agree with you here. He says, I'll say this. If you win a Super Bowl with this defense and the Eagles still leading the league in 3 and outs, this team is unbelievable. It's very true. That's true. That is very true. Here's Pumper. Xander, is it racist to say Jalen Hurts' performance has been shitwater? Same with Special Ed, Reed Blankenship. Both these motherfuckers blow job. There you go. Yeah, that's criticizing. There you go. Both sides. All right. Oh, that's funny. That is funny. Pump, no, it's not racist. Here's Special K. What's up, Special K? 40-2 is a big enough sample size to no longer be considered skating by. I agree. I would agree. Underdog says, would a pathetic 13-10 win over the Cowboys and their trash defense can convince the other half of the city, or do we actually have to lose? No, I think we'd actually have to lose, Underdog, to answer your question. I think we'd actually have to lose. To answer specifically what you're saying, to convince the half of the city, I don't even think a loss would convince them. You know, I do. I don't even think a loss would convince them. Island says we'd actually have to lose, and that still wouldn't be enough. I agree. A loss in the playoffs. A loss in the playoffs, I'm telling you right now, is going to open up a massive can of worms on this team because you're going to talk about it all year. Everybody's going to dissect everything. You're going to go back. Hindsight's going to be 20/20. You're going to look at every different thing with the team. You're going to look at all the problems, all the good, all the bad. You know, you're right. Q, that right there will really change the conversation. But it's unfair still because, Q, you don't win every year. Tom Brady didn't fucking win every year, bro. You don't win every year. You just don't. You know? You just don't. Tom Brady is the most Super Bowl winning quarterback of all time. He lost the final game a lot more than he won it. John brings it up all the time. Dang says, I don't expect this team to lose in the playoffs. Dang, to be 100% honest with you, as I always am, I don't either. Dang, they've broken me in that as much as I bitch or as I have a bitch, I was honest in what I said on Monday. I'm enlightened to a sense of, dude, this team has broken me. They just win. They win every fucking game. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how they win. Like, until they really prove me wrong, I don't know, bro. I don't know. Here's Pumper. What a horrible take. That's the beauty of this show, Pumper. A couple seconds ago, you were saying, this is why I love Jacob. Now you're saying that's a terrible take. That's why I love Jacob Sports. Because everybody here is allowed to speak their fucking mind. All right? Allowed to speak your mind here. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to disagree with me. I don't care either way. All I want is to hear your honest opinions. And Pumper, that's what I love about you. You give your, I think they're honest, but you think you give your opinions. Brandon says, they've broken to a point. I don't know what I'm looking at. I think a lot of people are in the same boat, dude. Bend but don't break, risk averse. Twiz, that's the MO here. Quick one says, with Nick's obsession about not turning the ball over, I'm not sure he'll trust any quarterback. Well, it's like what came first, the chicken or the egg, Do they run this risk-averse offense because of the quarterback, or do they run it only because they win? Is the quarterback a part of it, or is he because of it? I don't know. John seems to have said to me that he thinks they would play a different game if they had a different quarterback. Maybe some of the evidence would now people aren't going to like this evidence, but it is something you got to bring up. When Jalen didn't play last year in week 18, I know the game didn't matter. I know playing backups. I know they threw the ball 41 times. That's all. That's maybe the only piece of evidence we have in the last 2 years that you can point to, but it is something to consider. When they had a different quarterback playing, they threw the ball 41 times. Jalen might be a part of the reason that they run the risk-averse offense. Whether fair or not fair. Another thing John has said. Unfair. But here's ZM. Explain to me 22. And 23 started trying to do too much because the defense couldn't stop a group of toddlers. Yeah, I agree. What are you asking? What do I have to explain to you? Then they turned the ball over a lot. For the first 4 games of 24, and then they changed philosophies. That's what happened. This hasn't always been Nick's MO. It hasn't. This has not been Nick's MO from the jump. 23, they were a great offense in 23. They had a lot of turnovers, but they moved the ball. Turned the ball over a lot. I think a lot more because of the defense, but they decided to scapegoat Brian Johnson, who I think was just an egregious scapegoat, by the way. I don't think Brian Johnson was bad at all. I really don't. I don't think Brian Johnson was bad at all. I get it. People are going to go, whoa, did you show the bubble screens? Dude, we had a much better passing offense and a much better offense as a whole with Brian Johnson than maybe anybody since Steichen. Special cases, I'm telling you, when Nick C got hot, he dialed it back. Well, Special K, I mean, and you can understand why, obviously, because it's worked, right? But I do agree with you. But remember the context. 23, a lot of turnovers. 24, first 4 games. He had 7 turnovers in the first 4 games. Remember, it's all we talked about the bye week. After week 4 was a bye week. Literally, we spent 10 fucking days on this channel talking about 7 turnovers in the first 4 games for Jalen Hurts. It's like seared into my brain. It's all we fucking talked about. Then they came out and they completely changed. Don't turn the ball over anymore. I don't disagree with you, Special K. Look, I'm honestly, I'm not trying to have a gotcha on anybody, dude. I'm trying to have an honest conversation about the team. I love people's differing opinions. I'm curious to hear your guys' opinions. I give you guys credit. I think you guys are smart. I think we have a smart base of fans here for the most part. I really do. I think we have a smart base. I think there's a lot of stupid Eagle fans out there, but I think JAKIB fans are typically, because they listen to these shows, and we're not a glazed fest on JAKIB. I'm okay saying that. We're not. We don't come up here and just tell people, look, I get it. Not everybody's going to like that. John's pretty honest. Cilio is certainly honest, and he does not like a lot about our team. He does not like the quarterback, does not like the head coach, does not like the way they play, does not like the offense. It's not his style. So we naturally, though, people get weeded out. Not everybody likes us. Is what it is. Yeah, Special Cat. I think you're right. Dude. I think you're right. Catch says J-Mac glazes coaches. I don't think you're right about that at all, Catch. I've seen you say that a lot. I think you're completely wrong. I think you're way off the mark on John. And John knows there's times where I'll be critical of John. I think you're way wrong on that. John is very consistent on that. Except, I guess you could point to maybe he gives Vic a lot of credit, but he also did say this week, I think Vic gets too much credit. The talent on defense is really playing. It's really, really playing well. And Vic never won a Super Bowl until he had this talent. Vic never had a number one defense until he came to Philly. John is consistent about its players first. It's players first. I grew up, one of my favorite teams, my favorite coaches of all time is easily Nick Saban. Okay? A lot of that's because I went to Alabama. A lot of that's because I respect who he is as a man, as a person, as a coach. Listen to him, Catch. First thing he says, players, not plays. He says it a million times. Literally, I've listened to almost every Nick Saban press conference over the years. You know how many times he said that? Players, not plays. Players, not plays. That's what John subscribes to. So he doesn't come up here and say the entire problem with the offense is coaches. He doesn't believe that. He's being honest. He doesn't believe that. You want him to lie? So he says what you want him to, what you think, Catch. If your opinion is his coaches, that's fine. It's not John's opinion. He's not lying. You think he's lying to keep his press credential. Believe me, he's not. That's not the case. If you don't like his opinion, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to like his opinion. That I'm not telling you. Coaches are in charge. Yeah, so that's fine. That's, again, you're allowed to disagree with him. That's fine. If you disagree with him, which it sounds like you do, that's fine. But you're telling me John is lying and not speaking his honest mind because he's trying to protect the coaches. He's not doing that at all. I'm telling you right now, he's not doing that. And believe me, I'm one that would say it because I know John has to keep his press credential. And I understand how those people have a tough situation because what's more important to them? Being 100% honest about a football team that's inconsequential or putting food on their family's table? Obviously, putting food on their family's table is much more important. So people do. John is not. I'm telling you right now, especially on this, he's not. You can think what you want to think, but he's not. Yeah, Big Mike, it happens a lot. I get calls all the time. Here's Blaze. So I'm sure Lurie is glad he spent $200 million a year to watch the defense carry us. There's no fucking way he's happy with the offense. He loves high-powered offense. Yeah, but Blaze, at the end of the day, like, it's a salary cap. So, like, he's paying that money regardless, basically. Now, is he going to look and say we should pay money in different places? Absolutely, he's going to do that. But at the end of the day, the way I look at it is you pay the money for the wins, and look, maybe it's not, maybe it shouldn't be viewed like that. Because many times I've said, you think Lurie's happy with this offense? No, I don't think he is. I don't think he is. Alfredo, if you listen, stop being reactive. If you fucking listen, that's not what I said, bro. I said that's what John's opinion is, that players are more important than the play callers. Cilio and Queen Brunson going out on Twitter. Good. They could use a spat. I'm sure Queen Brunson has went immediately to he's a racist. Whatever. Here's Curtis. Xander, this is a real question. What is the unconventional great part of his game? Try to answer without saying wins. I mean, what does he do great to move the football? There are better runners. Well, I don't disagree, Curtis. He's not a rhythm passer. Coach Jason Brown, I know people don't like him, or some people, think he's controversial or whatever, he's right. This is not an on-schedule offense. It never has been and it never will be. That's not Jalen's game. He's an off-schedule quarterback with a tremendous ability to make plays outside the pocket. It's a very hard thing, one, to game plan for. It's a very hard thing to coach, and it's a very hard thing to draw an offense around. So for all the people who are mad at Kevin Patullo, I get it. I don't think Kevin Patullo is that great either. But you have to understand how fucking hard it is to draw an offense for a quarterback that makes 90% of his plays out of the pocket and off schedule. Off schedule. By its very, listen to that phrase, off schedule. By its nature means on, or the opposite of on schedule. The easiest thing for a coordinator to do is have an on schedule fucking offense. Again, I point to Ben Johnson. Somebody asked Ben Johnson the same fucking thing the other day. Why is there no 50-50 balls for the receivers? He's like, with all due respect, I'm not drawing up 50-50 balls. I'm trying to get my guys the football on schedule. I'm scheming them open to get the ball on schedule. If Caleb doesn't make the first throw or the first read's taken away or the second read's taken away and Caleb rolls out of the pocket, then he looks for a 50-50 ball. Then you try and identify the single coverage and throw it there. It's a very hard quarterback to draw an offense for. That's all I'm saying. That's not to take away from her. It's saying Kevin Patullo has a tough job to draw an offense for a fucking quarterback that is mostly off schedule. Deshae said, I don't even dislike Brunson. I think he's a fine content creator. What are you talking about? Y'all are a bunch of thumb thugs. I think you're talking to the chat. I know you're not talking to me. I know you're not talking to me. I don't know animosity toward people who make content on the Eagles. I'm sorry, but life is a lot bigger than that, bro. I assume you're talking to the chat and not me. Because I don't have a problem with Lord Brunson. I don't agree with a lot of his takes, but I don't have a problem with him. And there's nothing I need to say to his face. What do you mean say to his face? Say what? Off schedule is the opposite of on schedule. It's to illustrate a bigger point, Luis, but I know your fucking dumb brain doesn't process. Who called Brunson Queen? I think I read a comment that said it, but I mean, whatever. In fact, let me find it. Let me find the comment. Because Deshae's emotional today. Let me find the comment for Deshae, who's emotional. I don't see it, but I can't find the damn comment. I won't waste any more time on Deshae. Here's Nazzy Naz. What's up, Naz? I think we are just a very passionate fan base. We all want the best for the Eagles. That's what makes the stakes high at Philly High. We expect great. Absolutely. All right. Absolutely, brother. Deshae said, I don't think I called him a name. I'm pretty sure I fucking read a comment. What the fuck you're talking about? Deshae, get out of your fucking emotions. All right, dude? Holy shit. I thought it was great too, Big Mike. I love content like that. Here's Blaze. Hurts is still a top 10 quarterback, but his flaws as a passer are really showing up this year now that teams know how to play us. I think you could probably make an argument with the way they're playing, you know, not top 10 at this point. I mean, I need some people in the chat. Who are people in the chat that love Jalen Hurts? That's who I want to the front right now. Not people who don't like Jalen Hurts. Who loves Jalen Hurts? Who loves Jalen Hurts? Here. I do. Me. Okay. How do we reason with this? Alfredo, me. If we love Jalen Hurts, which is fine, all right, he's won a lot for this organization. I have no problem with people loving him. How do we reason, or do we still think he's in the elite conversation? Because elite and top 5 are tremendous compliments to players, and it's reserved for rarefied air. And for me, it's like, I love Hurts, but I can't sit here and say he's elite. Like, they don't ask him to do anything that elite quarterbacks are asked to do. They don't. So I'm curious for the people that love Hurts, how you reason with that in terms of the entire offensive philosophy has become don't turn the ball over. I'm sorry, but that is not what you ask of top 5 quarterbacks. That's not what you ask of top 5 players at any position. You don't do that. If he was elite, they would not do that. Hey, Jalen, just don't turn it over. You don't ask elite players that. No? Am I crazy? He doesn't get the opportunity to show he's elite. Why is that? I love Jalen, but never said he's elite. Jalen isn't even a top 5 off-schedule guy, much less a top 5 guy. I do. He's a winner, and you can't take that from him. Well, remember, football is a game where there's multiple phases, guys. Okay? There's multiple phases of football. So I get it. Hurts is a great winner. There's no doubt. But, guys, let's not act like there's not a defense on the field. Let's not act like there's not multiple phases to a game. Come on. We're having a nuanced conversation this morning. Hurts isn't the only reason we win. He plays his part in winning. Doesn't turn the ball over. Makes plays when he needs to. I get it. Does his part in winning. He's not the reason we win. He's not the sole reason we win. Bird Season says he is elite, though. He's proven he is with his own style of play. Doesn't look pretty, but who cares? He isn't top 5, but how many top 5 guys are winning at that clip? Again, you guys are going immediately to the other stuff. I'm talking about in a vacuum, is Jalen Hurts elite? They don't ask him to be elite. They don't ask him to do anything that elite quarterbacks are asked to do. And winning at that clip is not really a trait that makes you winning is not a quarterback stat. This is football. It's not boxing, bro. It's not even basketball for that matter. I don't think saying he wins a lot is, I don't know. Let's go to, I want to go to my boy. Gary says, I disagree. He isn't the reason we win. He's often the reason we win, especially when he's running. Well, you can make that argument, but certainly this year at Motor State, with the way that they're playing and the way they're trying to play on offense, they're really not asking him to go and win games. They're asking him to not lose games. That's what the whole turnover conversation is. Just don't go and lose the game. Don't go and turn it over. Coach said it yesterday. Most of the dudes that run around, that's not elite quarterback play. Well, I don't disagree. I actually think there might be an epidemic of lack of elite quarterback play right now, Joseph said, Joseph, here's the big difference. There's 5 men on the floor and all of them play both ways, Joseph. So I largely disagree with you that a quarterback is as impactful on their team as any basketball player. Maybe the average basketball player, yes. You're telling me that a quarterback has as much impact on a game as LeBron James does on a basketball team? or as Michael Jordan had on the Bulls, I cannot agree with you there, bro. I cannot agree with you there. Dude, quarterbacks on the defense, half the game is playing defense. Half the game. Literally half the fucking game. You're on the field on offense, and then you're on the field on defense. I mean, Jalen's not on the field for half of the game. Again, that's not a knock on him. It's just pointing out about football. Like, it's a different game than basketball, dude. It's a completely different game. So I can't really agree with you. Football is the ultimate team. I agree 100%. I don't think any one man, he doesn't touch the ball every play. Touches the ball every play on offense, which is still only half the game, Zeal. Which is still only half the game. And then you add in handing the ball off 20 times to Saquon Barkley. Like, come on, man. Like, there's context here. Let's not just deny the context. He doesn't touch the ball every play. No, he doesn't. He touches the ball every play on offense, which is half the game. Does he have a massive impact? Does he have a bigger impact than any other one single player on football? 100%. 100%. Bigger impact than any player on the football team. 100%. Cal says you can say the same shit about basketball. Cal, I'm not sure if we watch the same sport when it comes to basketball, but no, that's not true at all. Steph Curry doesn't run up the floor, shoot a three-pointer, and then go to the bench. No, he doesn't. The fuck are you talking about? Also, 5 men on the field versus 11 men on the field. It's a way different style. It's a way different style. I rock with Hurts, period. That's fine. I rock with Hurts, too. I like Hurts. But I'm trying to be honest about what our offense is, man. That's all. Here's Terrence. Calling people monkeys is not okay, Z. That's what Sills did. Of course, people will call him a taco. Well, Terrence, I don't disagree with you. It was a bad comment. It was a stupid comment that Cilio made. Terrence, he's profusely apologized for the comment. He's been on the air 35 years, Terrence. 35 years. That's the only instance of anything Cilio has ever said that could be remotely viewed as racist. Now, Terrence, I'm not going to ask you to admit something, but do you honestly believe that every single person in this chat hasn't said shit that they regret at times in their life? Seriously. I get it. I'm not up here to justify what Cilio said. It was a shitty thing to say. It was a fucking very shitty thing to say. I'm not of the belief that people who say one wrong thing should be out, should be put out of the public eye for life and put in jail for life, hypothetically. I don't view it like that. I get it. I get what you're saying. That's why people call him a racist. But one comment like that in a 35-year career where you say it on the air, I get it. It was an awful comment. I know Cilio more than all of his listeners do. All right? I'm telling you right now, that dude doesn't have a racist bone in his fucking body. He doesn't have a racist bone in his fucking body. And if he did, he wouldn't work with JAKIB. I'm telling you right now. You don't have to believe me. I don't really care. Nobody has to believe me. I don't care. I know what I know. And I have confidence in my convictions. Can someone tell me who this Zander guy even is, bro, even as a host? Callie, shut the fuck up. You're fucking here listening to my show, and you're asking who the fuck I am? Who the fuck are you? Bitch, who the fuck are you? Get the fuck out of here. You don't want to be here. I don't give a fuck. Fuck you, bitch. Gilbert becomes a member. Gilbert, thank you, dude. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Gilbert with his $2 super chat. Gilbert, if you meant to say something, just comment in the chat. I'll get to it, man. All right. I'll get to it. You might have messed it up, but all good. Not everyone is forgiving. That's fine. All right. I don't live my life like that, Big Dragon. If you expect me to just accept that everyone lives, you think that's a good way to live, Big Drag? Yo, Big Drag, have you ever done anything in your life that people would view as unacceptable or wrong? Ever in your life? All right, now what if I publicized it and then said, I'm never going to forgive you. You're a shit person. Every fucking person listening to this right now, every single one, there's not a single exception, me included. There's not a single fucking exception has said shit that was wrong. Not done shit. I'm not talking about doing shit. I'm not talking about the act of doing something wrong. I'm talking about saying something. Fucking speaking words. God, we have gotten so fucking soft, man. Xander says stupid. Waddington, I agree. Xander, imagine if the defense was as inconsistent as the offense. We'd be all over them. Absolutely, we would. Here's Rachel. Rachel says, Jalen takes us to Super Bowls and to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years and wins one last year, and you guys want him gone? This fan base is so ridiculous at times. He's also had a new play caller every year. Yeah, but Rachel, that again, do you believe the success of the Eagles in the last 3 seasons is more because of Jalen Hurts or more because of the talent assembled on the team? It's a simple question. What's the answer? Who deserves more credit for the success of the team? Jalen Hurts for the last 3 years, the roster that's been assembled. I think it's an obvious answer, but maybe you'll go a different route. I personally blame skinny jeans for squeezing all sense and brain circulation out of this era. The roster. I would agree. And that's not a knock on anybody. Wait a second. Let me just illustrate to you why it's not a knock on Jalen Hurts. I think Josh Allen's one of the best quarterbacks in football. Why isn't he one? Oh, wait, the roster's not very good. Joe Burrow is one of the best throwers of the football. Why hasn't he won? Oh, wait, the roster's not that good. Pat Mahomes lost last year. Why? Oh, his roster wasn't as good as the Eagles. Nobody fucking wins alone. Stop acting like going to 2 Super Bowls for the Eagles is all a Jalen Hurts accolade. It's not. He deserves credit. He played his role. It's not all Jalen. We played 4 playoff games last year. He stunk in 2 of them. He fucking stunk in 2 of them. Literally. He stunk versus the Rams, and he stunk versus the Packers. Yeah, that's what I said earlier, Rachel. He played his role. He's not the reason we win, but he plays his role in winning, which at this point has become, don't turn the ball over. That's what anybody who is not seeing that is denying their own 2 eyes. The identity and the role of Jalen Hurts is simply do not turn the football over. That's why our offense is ranked at the bottom of the league every year. Our passing game was 29th in the NFL last year. This year, we're bottom of the league again in offense because they're not asking him to go and win us games. He's playing his role. He's playing it very well. He's not the reason we win the 2 Super Bowls in 3 years. He's not. Please, with that shit. He was much more of a reason we went in 22 than he was in 24, and it's not even close. It's not even close. He was way better. He was way more of an impact on the 22 team than he was on the 24 team. Like, it's not even in the same ballpark. Like, he was like, if we didn't go last year and you said to me, Jalen led this team to a Super Bowl in 22, I would say, yeah, he did. 22, he absolutely did. He was a machine in 22. Defense gave him help. They led the NFL in sacks. They had a historic sack season. But Jalen was a massive reason for 22. A lot more than he was in 24, in my opinion. It takes everyone, including Hurts. Yeah, but Rachel, I agree with you. But you can't then get mad at anybody who looks and says, geez, would we get more out of an offense that's pretty underperforming with a different style of quarterback? I'm not calling for Jalen to be replaced, but acting like that thought exercise is ridiculous, to me, is dumb. There's no other offense in the league. Think about it. This is what I don't get about people who refuse to have even a conversation about the quarterback. What do people think about the Green Bay offense? They're top 10. What do people think about the Green Bay? When people talk about Green Bay's offense, is Jordan Love removed from the conversation? When people talk about any offense in football, find me one offense in football, whether the best in the league or the worst in the league, and find me somewhere where the quarterback is not a part of the conversation. We have a bottom-ranked offense, and anytime someone brings up the quarterback, half of the chat is like, you're an idiot, you're a Jalen hater, you're a racist, you're this, you're that. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? We're a low-ranked offense, and we're talking about it. Is the quarterback really not a part of the offensive discussion? Really? He's a part of the discussion. He's a part of the discussion. What other offense won the Super Bowl last season? What other defense was number one in football? What other offense had the number one running back in one of the best running seasons in the history of football? Reyes, appreciate the comment. Add in all the full context, and I'm perfectly good with your explanation. You know, I'm perfectly good with your explanation. Add in the context. DJ's in his field. Hurts is a game manager with off-schedule upside. Got it. See you at the parade, Xander. I'll buy you an elite shot of tequila. I'm good. I don't want your shot of tequila. And you can smoke on your elite cigars in February on Broad Street. I'll see you there if you're there. Maybe if you open your ears a little bit more, DJ, you wouldn't leave so upset. Rachel says, what's the answer to what? A team is successful. There might not be an answer, Rachel. The answer might be we got to live with the bad offense because the philosophy that they're running has worked to the extent it has. They're 40-2 when they win the turnover differential, which means to me they are not going to change their offense. Why would they? If you're Nick Sirianni, I've said this point on the show, why would you change? If you're Nick Sirianni, I get it. There are people in here who love Jalen Hurts, and there are people in here who hate Jalen Hurts. There are people who think Kevin Patullo is the dumbest fucking guy in football, and there are people who think he's not a problem at all. Why would Nick change a thing? He's 40-2 when they win his philosophy. He's not going to change. He's not going to change a thing. So we're kind of all talking about pie in the sky shit. He's not changing shit. The question is, will they get got? Because the margin for error is really small. Oh, man, I don't want your shot of tequila. I want you to not be deaf. Yeah, you're right, Bryce. That is what I want. But you can't win them all. Is he going full Tommy DeVito? How? I don't even. Tommy DeVito's a short guy, right? The guy from Always Sunny. They turned a dual threat quarterback into a low turnover game manager. That's a fair analysis. That's a fair enough analysis. All right, I'm getting out of here. Tomorrow we're doing a giveaway. Not today. I've now rambled too long. All right. We'll do a giveaway tomorrow. We got a jersey giveaway tomorrow. All right. So if you're not a member, get your memberships in. And if you are a member, thank you for supporting the channel. You guys are one of the biggest reasons that we are on the air. We do appreciate all the great people who tune in every day. Look, I love great conversation. If you like it, then you'll like Jacob. If you want to be lied to and told whatever you believe, then you won't like JAKIB Sports. Not everybody likes JAKIB Sports. I'm perfectly good with that. That is fitting for my entire life, okay? My entire life, some people love me. Some people fucking hate me. It is what it is, all right? Eagles fans, same thing. A lot of people love this channel. A lot of people fucking hate this channel. It is what it is. It is what it is. I got appreciation for each and every person who clicks on a JAKIB Sports video, on a JAKIB Sports post, who clicks a like button, who drops a comment, any of the case, even the people I had to rip. All right, so appreciate all you guys. Hit the like button, man. Hit the like button. Let me make sure I got all my super chats. I don't want to leave anybody out. My boy Brandon. Thank you, Brandon. Preach, brother. Thank you, bro. Blaze says 22 couldn't figure it out of RPO. He dominated. Yep, that's exactly right. 22. Jalen was a great player. Okay. All right, love all you guys. Hit that like button. See you next time, everybody.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.